Broadcasting to you live from the Orion spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, somewhere in between two formerly tariffed nations. My name is Brian Engelman. This is the Agree to Disagree show here on the New American Media because the old American media has failed you. I say they failed you, but obviously they haven't failed you. They've delivered exactly what they wanted. Carefully pre-selective narratives that keep them in power and keep us groveling at their feet. Today, we have a special guest. It's a long time since we have had a chance to speak with Adam Kokesh. Adam has been, Adam's been a veteran. He has been a speaker. He has been a liberty activist. He has been a rabble rouser. He's been a thought leader. He's been a political influencer.
Titles, credentials, blah, 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 blah.
And he's joining us today. Adam, are you joining us today from Arizona, perhaps? Is that where the homestead is?
I am not in the United States. I am within the United States, but my 10-acre homestead is a sovereign microstate, completely surrounded by Arizona, in the mountains, about an hour west of Flagstaff, and I absolutely love it.
No, that is excellent. Now, if you recall, someone that's worked with the New American Media a lot over the years, Blake Wally. Hung out with you on the homestead for quite some time. What has the experience been like?
Blake was in a fifth wheel when I was just getting started here, and he put in some critical foundational work to this, what I've got here. And I live in paradise. My American dream, quote unquote, trademarked, has always been take a raw piece of land and using my I wear gloves a lot, but using my bare hands like a man, turn it into a habitable self-sustaining space. And just a quick reframing on the whole concept for people who aren't really familiar, and some who are will appreciate hearing this. Sometimes the modern movement of homesteading is mistaken for being a return to traditionalism or inherently conservative or regressive in some ways, a sort of back to nature kind of thing. And it has some elements of that, I wouldn't deny it. But if you look at human history, when we went from hunters and gatherers with lives that were very nasty, brutish, and short, we then, with agriculture and other technologies, had the ability to live asshole to belly button packed into small towns, and we huddled together for the purposes of survival. And as the evil paradigm of bureaucracy that has come to dominate the world has taken over, we can we have to escape that. And what we do as homesteaders today is not like living on the edge or primitive necessarily. I mean, we're all fucking high tech. I mean, I got solar, I got a generator, I got a wind turbine. I'm talking to you on Starlink. Without
you're not sacrificing quality of life. You're as advanced as anybody else is.
Well, a little bits here and there that are really appropriate and overall beneficial sacrifices, or little trade-offs, if you will. But no, the lifestyle that I have, I am very much aware that it would be really fucking difficult when American pioneers were doing it, and you go out and live on the frontier, you're fucking alone. Right here, I got neighbors I can see. So the area I live in is called Juniperwood Ranch, around the town of Ash Fork, right off I-40. And it's a 120,000 acre cattle ranch that is being parceled out in mostly 40 and 10 acre lots. And within this, there's a community of people living off grid, and I absolutely love it. I love my neighbors. People complain about egg prices, and I'm on a little community Facebook group, and someone's going free range, organic, homegrown eggs, $5 a dozen. And it's they're giving them away out here. I don't know if you've ever done chickens and eggs, but it's hard to have a chicken egg production with just enough for yourself. You always end up with excess.
Well, it's like anybody with cucumbers or tomatoes, eggplant, whatever you're growing, you have 1,000 of them. And the game plan is you have extra of these. Can I barter? Can I trade with you? We don't need to bring the government into this. I grew this in my backyard. I got an extra basket, hand me a basket, we're good. And as far as my experience with eggs, I moved into the Greater World Earthship community in Taos, New Mexico.
I've been there. I did the academy, the 1 month intro.
Exactly. Yeah, and like I moved into the Hive, housing for interns, volunteers, and employees. And I started.
I did the walkthrough of that building. Oh, excuse me. Just a second to put this on my timeline. After my last book tour, I did the 1 month intro class. And that's like my entire carpentry construction training that I've like now grown into the ability to do everything I do here. But yeah, it was, I've been on the road and reading about every type of, off-grid construction methodology paradigm. And it was before buying this land. So it would have been like 9 years ago I was in Taos. So the Hive building, I am familiar with the Hive building. Oh, yeah. How long ago were you living in it?
I was there. I went to go visit me. Now I'm guessing when I went to visit, but then I went back. We did like a weekend thing or a week thing or a week. I think we did like a 2 or 3 day thing prior to what you went through. Before it was called the Academy, it was called something else.
Right.
A week there, maybe in 2009, and then maybe it was 2011.
Wow.
In 2011, I was there. I was supposed to be there 3 weeks. And then I just kind of said, hey, can I stick around longer? I made a documentary that they ended up putting on their website. It was kind of showing what the intern experience was like. So I interviewed all the interns about what it was like, where they were coming from, what they learned. It was pretty cool.
By the way, if anybody wants a intro or background knowledge on what we're talking about, Earthship biotecture, you can Google that, you can find it. And you can watch the documentary, The Garbage Warrior, about the man, Mike Reynolds, behind the concept and this facility. And he has done an incredible job developing his building technique package and putting together a wonderful organization behind it that trains people and spreads and shares that knowledge.
And fun fact about that, I actually have a full documentary that I just need to edit together from when I was there interviewing Michael Reynolds and some of his core crew that I haven't released yet. I don't know why. It was on a hard drive and life got in the way and projects piled up. But yeah, I can tell you exactly when I was there because it was right after the Oscars. I was clean shaven. I was bartending at the Oscars. And then I drove, I think I took a nap, got up and drove straight into Taos, New Mexico. And I moved in for 6 weeks during the.
Wait, you were bartending at the Oscars? I hope you put LSD in all the drinks. Did you do? No.
I think they were putting them.
What a missed opportunity.
Actually, I think there was a little backward in the Hollywood community. I think Diddy was there. Diddy might have been there. I can tell you exactly. I was there on March 11th because that was when Fukushima hit. And so Mike Reynolds came out during that ecological disaster. I had to call back with my ex-wife and like, hey, you're in LA. Be careful about a coming tsunami. It was wild. But Michael was talking about mushrooms and how they eat radiation. And so he went on a big thing, but I remember being there exactly March because of the Oscars. It was March 11th. I just looked it up. Fukushima 2011.
2011.
2011, yeah. Okay. And it was right before the 2012 shift. And it was like, yeah, it's cool. Set up your solar panels and you got your greenhouse facing, your south-facing greenhouse. That's nice. But what if the Earth's axis tilts in 2012? And what if you're facing the wrong direction? You built something.
No.
Not gonna do anything. I think
what if the Earth is actually flat and none of this makes sense? No, but so when you were there, the Hive, I'm assuming, was really just a big shell of a building.
Oh my God, it was incredibly rudimentary. I think we had, we meaning they had just purchased it back off of the foreclosure. They had it as a yoga studio or something, and nothing was working right. We were the beginning people planting the plants inside of the greenhouse, and in fact, upstairs in the Hive, in the greenhouse, I was extra, so I didn't have a room after 3 weeks. I slept in a bunk bed that was like -30 at night and 130. I just slept on a little bunk bed.
The Hive, for those of you who don't know, it's sort of one of their showpiece buildings at the Earthship encampment or the Earthship. What do they call the whole thing?
The
Earthship Village. It's the village. That's it. The Greater Earthship community.
And so when I was there,
it's a greater world.
I linked up with I think it was Michelle was doing a lot of the gardening and handling all the rentals. And so I teamed up with her because I love the gardening. I was in Los Angeles taking all of our empty spaces in the backyards, in the condos that we lived in. They were just dumping grounds for mattresses and trash and shopping carts. And so what we
Every
did is
homestead needs a junk pile.
well, we turned them into gardens. So we tapped into the water supply and we put drip irrigation systems in and we built gardens for all these. So I was like all about gardening.
It's not garbage. It's not junk. It's just shit I haven't figured out how to repurpose yet.
I can take you on a tour of my projects, but I got a plan for that. No, that's not trash. I have a plan for that. Trust me.
10 acres is a lot of room for that kind of mess.
That's true. And Earthships limit your space. It really kind of Marie Kondo. It really has to bring you joy to keep it up in your the square footage you have.
So when you saw the hive, and for those who haven't, you guys, anybody can Google this, look up pictures. It's a very cool 2-story building with columns and sort of intricate, if I call them spider web-ish kind of designs within the windows. And Earthships are famous or infamous, for using the stained glass bottle bricks. They're not stained glass; it's just 2 colored liquor bottles, taped together butt to butt and then embedded in a wall so light passes through. But when I was there, the hive was still mostly just an unfinished shell. The only thing done on the inside was the planters. And by the way, for the audience, planters are an integrated part of the Earthship concept that uses the south-facing wall of glass to create a linear greenhouse space that is within the home, and it is integrated into the water reuse recycling system. And it's really cool. It's very influential for me. And I have one building here that is, Earthship style as an above-ground root cellar, camp kitchen, multi-purpose room. But ultimately, where I really want to go with that is applying Earthship concepts and getting away from tires. Tires are a bitch. I got piles of them here, and I'm going to be using for landscaping, not for packing for buildings. But I'd like to explore some of the other compressed earth techniques or earth sort of thermal mass techniques for a home that apply these same principles. And I'm looking at compressed earth. I'm looking at something that I compressed adobe bricks. And then I came up with my own name for a technique that has been done before, but only very rarely and not quite my style. But what cob is, cob buildings, where it's like handfuls of mud, packed on and then plaster cased on a wood frame. So I was thinking if I was going to do compressed earth, and you see it's a pretty involved process. It's not like it's cheaper than conventional home construction, but you do end up with awesome and beautiful thermal mass.
Oh, yeah.
You can, looks like sandstone from the side when you take the wood forms off your tamped dirt. But what I've come up with, I call cob in a box, where it's basically compressed earth, but you leave the forms in place and then build insulation into the wood on the outside, on the north side of the house. And on the inside, you got a wood sheet, if you leave it there, to build whatever you want for interior onto. And as you might notice from my cabin, I'm a bit of a, interior design build out geek. I've done this whole thing with pallet and scrap wood and all that. But anyway, so back to the greater world.
Oh,
you when you were there, the Phoenix hadn't been built, had it?
I was working. Okay. I was getting to the Phoenix. The reason I brought this all up, other than the fact that I know you're living in one and Blake helped you build one and all of that stuff. I used to go with Michelle to the Phoenix being a 3-story. I think it was 3-story tall.
No. The Phoenix, it looks 2 stories and it's got some elevated elements.
3-story tall, 2 or 3.
No, you're thinking of something that's closer to the main buildings. That was an experimental 2-story building where they were doing the Blackwater experiments, and Blackwater planter. I don't remember what that building's called. Phoenix is a huge green one that really is an art piece, and it's their one flagship luxury home Earthship that is just absurdly. I built a picture. The Phoenix Earthship is.
It's saying. Wait, they're saying it's in Phoenix, Arizona. That's not the right one. I was trying.
No. It's the Phoenix, named after the bird. But it's green, not like the Phoenix. But it's got a beautiful built-out greenhouse. with a koi pond in it where you can fish. Little kids go fishing in it, and you can Airbnb it. You can rent this thing. It's not cheap, but yeah, that's it. It's got that classic Earthship courtyard, as you can see in that bottom center picture. That's the view inside of the greenhouse, and underneath that light green arch structure is the pond itself, and it is it's inspiring.
That's at least 2 stories tall. That's one story.
Yeah, it's 2 stories tall, but it's 1 floor.
Gorgeous place. And so there's Mike Reynolds here inside the Phoenix. Yeah, this was done. It's completed, and this is
what makes it
outside.
By the way, tall ceilings I've come to appreciate are an underappreciated luxury. I mean, even here, this is a 16-foot by 40-foot barn roof prefab shed, like premier buildings, the shit you see on the side of the road. This is sort of like my temporary, I don't say temporary, I'm building this as the guest house to live in for 5 to 10 years while developing the rest of the property and building the dream family house, which is going to be that ultimate thermal mass.
And by the way, that's how a lot of people in Taos do it. They just give me a hut. You can build a hut for $2,000-$3,000 in supplies. A couple of your buddies in a weekend can get
camp while you build your dream home. Take your time.
Then you have a place to reside. It's almost like having like an RV or something on your property while the house is being built, and it takes a while.
Which is how I did it originally. But I want to point something out, since it occurs to me the way that you said that to anybody listening, watching, who has some kind of psychological block or mental block to jumping into considering the possibility of homesteading for themselves. There's kind of a mystification through the TV dramatization, the horror stories, and yeah, it's easy to fuck it up. But a lot of people mistakenly believe that you need skills before you start homesteading. You don't, especially in the age of YouTube University. You basically homestead, and so you don't need to do anything in particular. You can do it your own way. You get an RV and eat canned food and never grow your own, or however you want to do it. You could buy a prefab home and put it. No one's, you started a homestead because you didn't build your home from scratch. Nobody cares. It's a general IQ test, not a skills test. And if you're smart enough to not be vaccinated, you can handle homesteading. Let's put it that way. If you're vaccinated, I take it on a case by case basis, But well, dude, did you see? This is like all the boxes that we're checking as conspiracy theorists. Go, yep, we're right. We're yep, and we're 37-0 now.
130
study. What? Yeah, no, it depends how you count conspiracies, right? So many to choose from. But how many conspiracies do I believe? Let me count the ways. Oh, no, I can't. There's too many. But no, there was a Yale study published recently about vaccine side effects. And one of the common ones, sadly, and like this is one that I suspected, but didn't feel confident stating as fact publicly really until now. But brain fog is a common scientifically documented side effect of the COVID mRNA vaccines, which they had to change the definition of vaccine to include. So yeah, my favorite retort on internet flame wars on social media is, you sound vaccinated. You doing all right? But to be fair, a lot of people got duped and circumstantially pushed into taking the vaccine. And if you did and you regret it, I hope you got the saline shot.
Oh yeah, they did some of those for sure. And people, silent heroes, if you will, silent heroes who did that. Let me point out something on this Phoenix real quick. If you look at the back of it and you look on to the left-hand side a little bit, what you'll see there, let me switch to this tab instead. Oh, wait, hold on. I'll go to this tab instead. Do you see this one? This is the Phoenix Chicken Earthship. Let me...
Yeah, I've been there, man. I have photos on my phone of that thing that's embedded in the courtyard, and they built an Earthship style chicken coop. Yeah.
So you asked, do I have any experience with chickens? And so I would say, like, yes, I worked on the Earthship chicken house that looks like a mini version of the Phoenix at that
Ooh,
property. And that
cool.
was my experience. We used to go, here's the overhead view, if we can see this one here.
That's a great shot there on the right there. You got, yeah.
Yeah, there's so many shots. Like every time I open up a new tab, I got to make sure I'm sharing the right screen here. But like this is the overhead view of the Phoenix, and if you look, like it's kind of fenced in with that wall, but then the chicken ship is over there. But anyway, point being,
The chicken ship.
yeah, the chicken ship. You're yeller, feller. You're chicken ship even. Anyway, but yeah, I used to go there every day. What we would do is we would go ahead. This stops sharing the screen. So what we would do is we would go clean up the garden beds in the other Earth ships that were being rented out. So we'd go help do that, and then I'd get all the grubs and mealy worms and stuff, the little roly polies, get a bucket full, and then we'd go dump them for the chickens that were giving us the eggs. That I love it. I love how humans can live if we decide to. And
yeah. By the way, about
to jump in, like they need to figure out, like, get your hands dirty, live in this environment a little bit, because that's who we are. It's not just supposed to be incandescent light or halogen lights and little boxes and air conditioning. You're supposed to sweat. You're supposed to be cold. You're supposed to be working.
By the way, speaking of eggs, you know how you can tell if someone's a vegan?
How can I tell?
Don't worry, I'll tell you. Yeah, no, a couple of years. Actually, I've been a vegan 6 years, and I was extremely strict about it for 2 years.
Hold on. Are you? Wait, hold on, real quick. You're currently a vegan?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Okay.
But I'm not a dick about it. I just like people to know that I'm better than them. So no, I was literally for 2 years 100% 0%, calories from animal products. Now I'm like relaxed about it because I'm not trying to be pure. I'm just trying to be healthy and principled in my consumption and my purchasing choices, obviously. I also fast 23 hours a day most days, and then I eat one big meal. And there's a video on YouTube called Vegan Strongman Eats One Meal a Day, and I kind of base my routine on that.
Oh, mad. One meal a day.
Yep. Yeah, and vegan.
And that's how humans go hunt. You'd get a big meal because it was going to spoil, so you ate everything you could, and then you waited a long time, and you'd have to find something else to hunt. Like that's kind of how you're wired.
When I started this, and I watched that video, Vegan Strongman Eats One Meal a Day, long before I became vegan, and it is when you hear that phrase, a vegan who fasts 23 hours a day, or you hear that idea, right? If it triggers you or doesn't add up or makes you think, oh, that's deprivation of some kind, it is only a measure of how imbued in your head the false modern nutritional paradigm is. And yeah, free thinkers got to like question everything, break through that shit. It doesn't do you any good to wake up to the nature of government and still eat their bullshit food processed with who knows what the fuck now. Yeah. But also, hey, if you want to avoid vaccines in your food, you want to avoid hormones and antibiotics. If you're gonna have to eat, like sometimes I eat canned food. I have a stash. I don't have like barrels of grains. I have a large stash of canned food, and my Amy's organic vegan soups is my favorite. I can just pop 2 of those and drink them, and that's a meal. So I forgot where I was going with that.
Vegan and avoiding vaccines and avoiding
antibiotics,
all that stuff injected into the meat that we eat.
I don't pretend that my canned food is perfectly clean. If I buy vegetables at the grocery store, I don't even pretend that is perfectly clean. If I grew them here, even then I couldn't say they're perfectly clean, but they're as close as I can practically get. But if you want a simple way to cut out a category of toxins from your body, obviously processed sugar, processed food in general, and the next one is animal products. And now back to eggs. I'm considering, so like I'm a vegan for 2 reasons, that are equal and different, in their weight of ethics and health. And when you have humanely raised organic off-grid eggs, like we used to do here when we first got here. So I have a big bird run that I'm probably going to put raised beds in. It is a very small compromise on principles that aren't really absolute to begin with. And I may end up doing chickens and eggs again in order to have another independent organic food source out here. But even then, I'd probably eat like 1 or 2 eggs a day with my, big salad meal in the evening.
Yeah, it's been a change in American culture now. I mean, it's been a strange thing. By the way, for anyone who wants to check it out, go on YouTube and type my name Engelman in Earthships. You'll find several videos. One of them was also a tour of. Actually, I could show you this one. Since you brought it up, let me.
By the way, I am more muscular today than I ever have been in my entire life at age 43.
So you're not suffering the consequences of a lack of protein in your diet or lack of energy. By the way, here's a picture of the inside of the hive when we were staying there. Everything had gone to shit, and it was just beginning the process. We were outside digging up trees to bring them in.
Yep.
And so, yeah, this was.
I've walked where you're walking with the camera.
It's like how I envision the afterlife, by the way. I envision that we're going to get to unpack the DVR of our lives. So like, as I'm just walking through this place. Oh, that's where we're playing guitar. Oh, here's the winding staircase. I feel like when we meet God, if there's such a thing, they're just going to go to the DVR and we're going to have to replay what we heard, what we said, what we saw. And we're going to have to relive our low points. And we might be our toughest critics as well. I've had this thought, like, we're going to judge ourselves and go, God, I wish I could have done that. But then it's going to show the good shit. It's like, hey, I did a good job there. I was a good guy
Brian,
here. I did something nice.
We should probably gracefully transition subject, maybe back to general homesteading lifestyle before getting to the bigger shit wrong with the world.
Throw it all up against
because otherwise this is going to turn into a circle jerk pretty quick. I love you like a brother from another mother, and it's really just kind of funny how similar our paths have been, and they have rarely crossed. Like you mentioned, we were at the Tiny Homes for the Homeless event in LA, and with one of the libertarian presidential events, hanging out with John McAfee, may he rest in peace, by AI Antivirus, the AI John McAfee token. By the way, if you're into crypto, please check it out. I was honored to actually speak to his widow, Janice, on a space on X for the launch of the antivirus token.
Yeah, we did a whole show about that. It was wild. And it's
cool.
In alternate reality, I like to think that
I gotta watch it.
we both do. In an alternate reality, I go, there's no way Epstein really killed him. So he's kicking it on an island somewhere. He's just keeping below. But I go, there's no way McAfee's gone. I like to envision a world where he's kicking it somewhere. Now, I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just saying, if I'm writing fan fiction, wouldn't it be interesting that he could be watching our show right now live and we'd never know?
Do you want to remind your audience of my relationship with John McAfee, the late great?
I mean, if you could, you would be the best one to articulate.
Okay, well,
exactly. But you and I and Dean and a couple of, like, we hung out with him at 2 different times up in Bel Air, different fundraiser.
Yeah,
he was trying to get the libertarian. By the way, look at how buried we are in the hive here. That we had just started planting all this stuff in the 2-story greenhouse here in the hive. These were all started.
Dude, we got to get out of the weeds. Next thing you know, you and I are going to be exchanging recipes and growing techniques.
All right, back to McAfee. Go ahead.
So, yeah, John McAfee is someone who I had followed as a public figure, at a distance from when he sold McAfee Antivirus to moving to Belize and becoming the, awesome punk genius that he grew into.
The most interesting man in the world, I like to say.
That's hard to argue with that with John McAfee. Yeah. And by the way, his biography, and I apologize, I should look this up. I really want to get this right because I listened to the audio book.
Go ahead.
But the John McAfee biography, I listened to after his passing, alleged passing. And it was, No Domain, the John McAfee tapes by Mark Eglinton, because he interviewed him on tape over a series of phone calls, and then he died, and then he wrote the book. But yeah, No Domain by Mark Eglinton. And what's so cool about him as an author is he normally does like rock and roll subjects, like books about bands and musicians, and then it's like, John McAfee's a fucking rock star. I want to write a book about him. It's really good. And it revealed a side of John that I wasn't familiar with in terms of the kind of incredible work that he was doing in the tech field and the amazing lifestyle that it gave him before McAfee antivirus. And understanding if you understand the security state, the surveillance state, all of that, and you understand what McAfee antivirus represented as a player in cybersecurity, it's like there's a lot of lines crossing, and he had some really interesting secret squirrel relationships. But I sort of got to know him better when he announced that he was running for the Libertarian presidential nomination in 2016, and with our friend Judd Weiss as his running mate, and I endorsed him, and I was already getting ready to run in 2020. At that point, obviously, over prepared in advance, and really came to appreciate the man's intellectual integrity, because he was not. When he announced, this is like one of my greatest accomplishments in life, I think, is that I actually am the one. I can take credit. I dragged McAfee to the bottom of the libertarian rabbit hole. He was not quite there. Remember, at the beginning of his 2016 presidential campaign, he was saying, I, as president, am going to make this government in America super secure, cyber secure. And then we're like, no, we don't want government to do that. He was like, what? And he was already a punk and an anarchist at heart, pure of soul, no malice of the toxic control bullshit that politicians have. And Judd Weiss got him to read a copy of my book. Ah. And I actually have a copy. You know what, dude? It has been 3 years since I have even mentioned this book in any public way whatsoever. So given that it's part of the story, I'm going to take a second to promote it. But this is, the ultimate anti-government manifesto pamphlet, 100 pages, just long enough that, I can call it a book. This is the special edition version that we dropped as a book bomb in New Orleans.
Pause on that. Look what I found.
Yes!
Look what I found the other day as I was getting ready to have this conversation. Like, holy shit, I found Adam's...
Okay. So if we're going to show off freedom logos. The book was so good that a tattoo artist was inspired to say, in gratitude, I'll give you a day of work for free. And I said, buckle up, motherfucker. It's going to be a long day. Did that all in one go. Most painful thing I've ever experienced. But anyway, John McAfee read my book. All he had to do to, endorse it for my satisfaction was promote it on social media with a, 1 or 2 cents, you should read this book. And he did. And then I endorsed him. And it made him a philosophically, ethically consistent libertarian. And I'm so proud of that, aside from pride being a sin and blah, blah, blah. But I look back at that and I go, yeah, I wonder what influence that may have had for the rest of his life, which was obviously very interesting. But in 2020, he was running again. And this is actually possibly my greatest accomplishment, the end of this little story. But he was running again in 2020, but ran into the legal issues that caused him to leave the country. And he did not feel that he could run the race, the campaign that he wanted to outside the country. So he volunteered to be my running mate. I like to say, in humility, we were running mates running for president. And I don't pretend to have his self-education background, his uniquely special intellect, his wit, his charm, his fame, or his money. But to be at the top of the ticket with him as my running mate, I was like, yeah. Yeah. Like if I ever feel down on myself, and I don't, from that moment on, I've been like, I'm good. But yeah, John McAfee was my running mate, and that was in 2020 with the onset of COVIDism, that and the Mises Caucus shenanigans. The Libertarian Party was subject to a lot of I'm going to be broad and vague here, but nefarious interference, you know, and so we were like, yeah, we were my campaign, me and John.
From the Republican establishment, from the deep state, internal moles, because I went to all three conventions this year. I was in Chicago for the DNC, Milwaukee for the RNC, and in DC for the Libertarian Convention. And I thought what Angela McArdle did to kind of bring Bobby Kennedy and Donald Trump and Vivek and a bunch of people to just say, look, Chase Oliver ain't it. He's going to get less than 1%. We can get
that was the good looking part of what she did. That was part of her facade. Okay. And now I have a lot of people, when they look at how the Libertarian Party has been sabotaged, censored, sidelined, rendered irrelevant, neutered, etc., and they understand the deep state, they're quick to blame the bigger institutions. And if you go back decades to COINTELPRO, you've heard me give speeches on COINTELPRO, right? Mm-hmm. This is quick for the audience. It is an FBI program that is a portmanteau of counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO, sometimes read as COINTELPRO. And it was an FBI program in the 60s and 70s to render irrelevant the anti-war and Black Power movements. And a lot of the Black Panther leaders who were assassinated during that time were assassinated by agents of the FBI through the COINTELPRO program. So the only reason we know this is some very brave activists broke into an FBI field office. You can't imagine doing this today in the age of the surveillance state. They fucking broke in to an FBI field office, stole the records, they stole the COINTELPRO documents, and then they mimeographed them. You remember before photocopies? They mimeographed all these documents, sent them to all the politicians, everybody in Congress, all the major newspapers, and everybody ignored it for a long time until finally a handful of congressmen said, we got to have a hearing on this. And they did. And, the FBI got called on the carpet. And he said, oh, you caught us, how bad. We'll never do it again, we promise. So they do it under a different name. But I believe, and this is my explanation that is important to correct that false assumption of who's behind the sabotage of the Libertarian Party. Because Vietnam veterans against the war, the anti-war movement leaders that they were in the Vietnam era, actually a hero of mine, Scott Camille, and if anybody wants to look him up, Scott, C-A-M-I-L, and there's a mini documentary about him called Seasoned Veteran. It's a very good one, and it's a great historical window onto the activism of the time on the ground that those veterans who came home from Vietnam were doing. Scott Camille had been shot in Vietnam and was a multiple Purple Heart recipient. What they did to him is they sent an undercover FBI agent who was a hot young woman to seduce him, become his girlfriend. She set him up, worse. She set him up on a drug deal where he was being driven to the deal in the front passenger seat with an FBI agent in front of him and behind him, or next to him and behind him. And at some point he figured it out and tried to get out of the car. And they fucking shot him in the back, like literally tried to murder him. He survived. So back then, when we kind of, we are so steeped today in the paradigm of instant communication and global awareness, that an idea can travel around the world in seconds and whatever. A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is just putting on its shoes. Or Mark Twain. I almost said John Wayne. No, Mark Twain said that. John Wayne was more of a fake militarist statist sucker frontman actor for the Complex and all that. But no, so having studied this and experienced the next generation's version of suppression of an anti-war movement as a member of Iraq Veterans Against the War. And for the audience who doesn't know, I was, if you couldn't tell from the crayons in my teeth, I was in the Marine Corps, volunteered to go to Iraq, and I was in Fallujah in 2004 for the first battle. Got a taste of combat. I earned my combat action ribbon, but compared to the guys that were really in the shit at the time, I probably saw a fraction of the action that they did and fraction of the brutality. By the way, despite the individual violence experienced statistically by the average American soldier in Iraq and Afghanistan compared to Vietnam, it is a weak fraction. It is a much less brutal occupation than Vietnam was as a war. However, the reason that PTSD is still prevalent, and I hate that acronym, I'm more PTG, post-traumatic growth. But the reason that PTSD is a unique issue with our generation of veterans is that unlike in prior conflicts, as an occupation, there's no rear area. You are constantly in that state of psychological vulnerability that is then punctured by traumatic events, and you don't get to go to the rear because there's no rear. And even where I was, our main base, MEK outside of Fallujah, and then I was at a smaller outpost much closer to the city. We had rocket fire and mortar attacks like on a regular basis. You know, you got to wear a flak jacket and helmet every time you go outside. So, man, I love talking to you. I'm like so excited. This is the first interview I've done like this in years. I'm just like going off on too many tangents. So
I can bring you back. You're talking about the guy
bringing me back to COINTELPRO. The COINTELPRO thing, I don't think the FBI is doing it anymore. And here's why. They have been able to outsource it to Republican and Democrat operatives, and they just keep an eye on them. The way the system looks at the opposition, they don't want to evenly flatten and suppress the opposition because then it's too obvious. They want to scattershot it and just make sure it's overall not a threat. And so there's someone in the FBI, in the deep state, who knows where the fuck in that apparatus. You know, ever since they had, you know, hand-sized murder drones, like a drone that could fly a bullet into any forehead anywhere on the planet, and that's been a couple decades. This whole world has been really run by men hiding in bunkers who are all happy to kill each other if they could. But they're keeping an eye to make sure that the Libertarian Party is not a threat. So it doesn't have to be the big bad wolf. It could just be him making sure that you stay weak. And so with the Libertarian Party, back to Angela McArdle and the Mises Caucus, it was definitely some kind of subversive incursion. It deliberately designed to make the LP less effective overall, to sell out or to stunt even the movement. And it's not a knot that I give a fuck enough to untangle. It's one of the reasons I quit public life. Let's see, where are we now? 25, like 2.5 years ago. I really quit public life. I was just like, I'm going to be a private person now. I'm not going to be a public figure anymore. And I didn't say goodbye. I didn't, you know, make it. It was a nice Irish goodbye, just like duck out of the movement and, you know, hide in my little paradise in the mountains here. And now I'm kind of coming back. This is an important interview, you know, my life story, or maybe, but I even let my book and my main website go down because I just didn't want any of it, you know. And the main analogy that I used to describe my reasoning was, you cannot see the entire battlefield when there's a sword in front of your face. Can't do both at the same time.
When there's a sword
in front of your face.
Okay.
When you're in the melee,
when you're in peril, when something is, the sword of Damocles is literally over your head, you're constantly crouched.
Well, it's not Damocles. It's just a bunch of dumb government agent assholes in this analogy. But yeah. So
the sword of deep statecles.
So I realized that even if I was maintaining my extreme, absolute, principled commitment to the cause as a lifelong commitment, that the best thing I could do was, with my experience, apply it to understanding the bigger picture, and to step back and get some more perspective. And I have, and I figured, and in the meantime, I have, at first I beat zoning. So zoning, building restrictions, code, everything does not apply to my property. And I beat property taxes. You know how I beat property taxes? Christmas, year before last, I did the most Jewish fucking thing possible. And I used artificial intelligence to write a letter threatening to murder the county assessor. Subtly. I said, hey, this would go against the great American tradition of meeting the tax man with tar and feathers. Remember,
there's a non-aggression principle, and then there's also don't tread on me principle.
Defensive force.
Where they meet.
Defensive force is a subjectively evaluated form of art.
Yeah, self-defense. Okay.
But tarring and feathering was not a way to embarrass the tax man. It was a way to embarrass him while you murdered him. People did not survive being tarred and feathered. Like, look at that history. Like, anyway. But no, I asserted that I am Jewish, and it's nice to be able to play that card. Although I'm extremely unorthodox. That's the kind I am. And I am Jewish where it counts. In the wallet. I'm just kidding. I am circumcised, in case you were wondering. But
I was not.
I played the card appropriately in the sort of legal framework of American freedom of religion, that paying property taxes to an institution that does this and this and this violates my moral principles. So I cannot ethically pay property taxes. And there's the thing about the Constitution, and play the veteran card, and invoke all those ideas and whatnot. And I went into the post office on December 26th, and next time I checked my mail, there was a postcard in there postmarked December 29th, back from the county, saying that I was exempt from property taxes under their poverty program, which is like a glitch. I don't actually qualify. I don't know if I should say that publicly. I don't give a fuck. I live in another country now. But my letter was so effective as a, don't fuck with me. I'm so much more trouble than I'm worth. So they decided we would rather make a big clerical error and radically underestimate the value of your property in order to say that you don't have to pay property taxes. So after that, I declared sovereignty. I did my own version of the Declaration of Independence, and sent notification letters to the county, the state, the U.S. State Department, and the United Nations. And so now I have a website, and I do post regularly on social media in two places. I'm on my old Facebook, where I'm unshadow banned, or at least mostly now, it seems. At least you can call people fag-tarded vaccine suckers, whatever. I should have more insults for this at the tip of my tongue.
Well, to be fair, it's your first interview in a while. You can ramp up the insults over time. You got
No. I have been practicing making fun of vaccinated people for 2 years. I should be on point. But
by the way, it was your Facebook post. I haven't thought of you. I haven't seen you. You haven't been in my orbit for years and years. One day, while randomly scrolling through Facebook, you're like,
I got unshadow banned.
Kokesh. I go, holy shit, I haven't heard of him for what's he up to? And it's like, to everybody who's wondering where I've been and what I've been, no, I'm not planning on starting my podcast again, but I go, what the hell's he up to? Let's get him on. I haven't talked to him in years. So yes, some of the shadow ban has been slightly lifted. That's the reason I reached out. That's how we connected today. A slight opening in the doorway. The deep state does not want us to have an equal footing, an equal share of the internet. They want us as humanly possible.
You didn't think of me at all in 2 years. That hurts my feelings.
Maybe when I was alone in my darker moments, maybe occasionally. I'm not super proud.
When you needed a real Kokesh fire to get through the day.
I used my left hand, not my right, so it didn't seem so familiar. But anyway, we don't talk about that in public. But
and you made your hands all calloused like mine, yeah, right. And full of splinters. No, so during my 2 years as a private person, I mean, I wasn't hiding. I just shut up and backed up, and I would get contacted by people, you know, in my activism network, my friends, and you know, oh, I heard you on this podcast. Oh, I saw a freedom sticker here. Oh, blah, blah, you had me. Oh, I shared this video of yours. Oh, you inspired me to do this. And then with like the LP, every time my name gets raised, it's like it's a weapon somehow. And I came to just be like, oh, my ghost is haunting the freedom movement. It's like that's a cool legacy. Like I can sit back for 2 years and I still got that like
taint,
infamy momentum.
You have the cloud following you around like the cartoon kid. It lingers. You know, you're like incense that has burned out, but the cascade still lingers.
Stink lingers. Well, this is a kind of proof of principle or concept for me, and that I never really chased fame. And I think the coolest thing you can do when you're famous, or as I was, internet notorious, political famous, whatever the fuck, infamous, the coolest thing you can do is just drop it and walk away. I don't need that. That's cool, but I don't need that. And that was a really awesome assertion for myself. But before that, as an activist, I sought impact, not notoriety. And impact lasts longer. And I was kind of concerned, although detached and not really caring, that my name will be forgotten in a few months. I'll be irrelevant. And it's like, no, I had some deep impact, and my ghost is still haunting American politics, even when I'm sitting in my cabin. It's pretty cool. So now, I post on Facebook, and I have a Telegram channel, and my main website that's really just a landing page directory. It's got the Declaration of Independence. It's got a link to the PDF. You can't get the paper version any longer unless you
maybe eBay.
Oh yeah, actually I've seen some, and there are some collector's editions, but signed editions and first editions and the white cover editions and stuff like that. But unless you're really nice to me, you're not going to get a paper copy. But the PDF is free, and the audiobook is on Audible, linked there. So thegardenofreedom.com would be the only thing I'm really promoting. And I do want to go back to podcasting. What I want to do is promote the principles behind the lifestyle that I can now credibly, after 2 years, of working on and building out my. I've owned this place for 9 years, but I've been on the road about half the time, and it was only COVID that was like, sit down and do shit. You have no excuse.
Another time I saw you, you came through to Los Angeles. I think I went with two of the guys from the Lions of Liberty podcast. I think it was Mark Claire and Brian McWilliams. Brian, who's like right up at the top of the Libertarian Party right now, by the way. You came out and gave a speech. You had a truck.
Wait. The top of the Libertarian Party? That's like standing on a shit pile. I mean, it's not something to brag about. But
look, I talked to Dave Smith. Dave Smith, he impressed me at the Libertarian Convention. I'm not sure how familiar you are with him, but he was kind of hosting a panel between Clint Russell and Vivek Ramaswamy. And he was kind of, when I met him after his stand-up routine in Louisville, where I'm currently living, I said, hey, you kind of popped on my radar. I was impressed by how you handled yourself. I thought that your pragmatism was very necessary in this election cycle. And he goes, oh, well, you're the one. He goes, nobody else seems to. I go, look, man.
The whole Mises Caucus was of that. Let's sacrifice principles for pragmatism. And it's like, the point of principles is to figure out what's pragmatic. Jesus Christ. I'm with you. I like Dave. We're not friends, but we're friendly. And you point out he has a lot of great qualities. He is passionate, confident, articulate, tall and handsome. Little dark features. Tall, dark, and handsome. He qualifies. he's a good presence in a conversation. He understands libertarian philosophy. He understands American politics. He understands economics, at least sufficiently for the interaction and understanding all that. And for what he believes in, he's a great advocate. I will say one criticism, and it's based on his involvement with the Mises Caucus. And you could come to the conclusion he's one of those, evil infiltrators or saboteurs. I don't think so. It's definitely not fair to make that assumption. But at very least, he was kind of a useful idiot of the saboteurs in a small way, in being an adjunct servant with the Mises Caucus. And I hope he learned from that. I'm sure he did. I look forward to him. May he live long and prosper and continue to make people laugh and think.
Well, what I took an approach like this on a list of 100 things we would like to see. I don't think if Kamala, if she were somehow able to seize control of the country, I don't think we'd get more than one or two things on that top list of 100 things. I think I was very concerned.
No, I already know the paradigm by which you are now analyzing this, and it's incorrect.
Well, it's correct for me, because I'd rather get a few things than zero, because I have buddies that were pristine in their ideology. From their high horse, they could look down their nose and say, only Chase Olivier would have a perfect philosophy on life. Therefore, nobody shall get my
No. It's not. It's
libertarian. And whereas I said I'd like to get 30 things right and try to keep pulling the wheel over with a little bit of influence. Let's get a few.
Okay, let me give you a quick analogy that tells me why you're a sucker. You know what happens when you chase a lizard?
When you do what to the lizard?
A lizard. They drop a tail sometimes. Certain species, they can drop their tail and you can eat the tail. I mean, I don't eat the tail, but like my cats do sometimes. So.
Yeah, you're vegan. You wouldn't eat the tail.
Right. I would eat human flesh though. If I hunted it myself, and I knew that it was clean, hormone antibiotic free. Is that a thing?
Back to that.
We'll have to find a tribe in New Guinea or something. But yeah, murder tourism, great fodder for comedy. But if you understand the nature of the state as a criminal enterprise, then when it gives you something you want, it's a diversion, a distraction, or a pacification.
I'm listening.
You've got red flavored communism and you've got blue flavored communism. And yeah, this is a big thing to deconstruct. I mean, we go for the rest of the show talking about this subject. But I kind of want, if you don't mind, let me see. I gotta cut and paste something off my phone here.
By the way, I'll pause for a second, Adam. However you're watching the show, please hit like, please hit subscribe. This is the Agree to Disagree show here on the New American Media. Make sure you link up with our channels on Facebook, Instagram, Truth Social, Rumble, and YouTube. It's under the New American Media. The podcast is the Agree to Disagree show on Spotify and iTunes, patreon.com/the New American Media. Let's see. On X, we're at American_media_. And then we're on Telegram and Signal at TNAM and TNAM chat. All right, I'm seeing Adam here. I'm trying to get him in the studio. I see that he's here, but I don't see him on the screen.
I'm here. It's just when I click out of the browser,
he is back.
Whatever. Anyway, I was just moving a little document from my phone, sending it to myself on Telegram so I can look at it while talking to you from my laptop here.
I believe where we left off was I was a sucker. There we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody is. Hey, dude, I volunteered to go to Iraq for the Marine Corps. Like, hey, I got sucker credentials, okay? But I learned, I got better. So no, I want to read this essay that I wrote, and it's pretty short. It's really one long paragraph that I might break up into 3 or 4. Okay. And you can interrupt, and we can ramble. But this is really what is, I think, a new North Star for me, a new higher understanding. And if you see my Facebook posts and the podcast that I'm going to be launching in a month or two, going to be called Dear Adam. Brought to you by ComedyCentral.net. By the way, that's decentral.net. Nobody thought of that before me, and I'm shocked. It's such an obvious, easy way to make fun of Comedy Central. But yeah, I own the website, decentral.net. And when the news breaks, I fix the fuck out of it. But the style of my message, the way that the post that I make on Facebook, and by the way, for all you dumb motherfuckers who are dumbing down the rest of humanity by posting stupid shit on Facebook, fucking stop it. Have some standards. Stop posting meal pics and dumb questions that you could ask Google. Fucking knock it off. You are contributing to the retardation of humanity. And if we stop learning how to think, we won't know how to use AI. So my standard for content, like if you look at my Facebook wall or my Telegram channel for an hour, and you feel that that was not better than you sitting down reading a book or watching a documentary for an hour, I'm not going to post it. And I think one of the side effects of the algorithmic orientation and incentives on social media, Facebook and X in particular, has served to dumb down the dialogue. It's accelerated it and made it a lot smarter and capable and more connected in a lot of beautiful ways. I think it's amazing. But it has also exploited some of our baser instincts and made the conversation dumber. But what I want to do, and this is sort of, I didn't come to this intentionally, someone just stumble into it because I like telling bad jokes on Facebook. And do you know Owen Benjamin? Big Bear?
And he's come back onto my feed, him and Steve Byrne with that comedy show that they were doing for a while. And I saw Steve when he came through town. Yeah, Owen is a wild man. He went off grid. He's a farmer. He teaches piano, and he's got some wild ideas. But
Owen Benjamin is another one of those brother spirits of mine. And I shared a post of his recently, and I'm going to butcher his brilliant wording. But he said, I live in Idaho and, I grow my own food off grid and I can still have the internet and I don't give a fuck if I'm canceled or make money for any of this. Basically, I built a greenhouse so I could keep calling everybody a faggot on the internet. That's commitment to art that you don't fucking appreciate until you understand it.
I read that same post. I recently read that same post, and he's a good writer. He when he drops something, makes it count.
Well composed, always. And
it's freedom to him too. It's the freedom to not give a shit because I've built a life where I don't need you. I don't give a fuck what you think.
It's bigger than that.
It is.
And what I said this recently on a post. I love my friends more than I love our friendships. Because the opposite of that, if you say, no, I put my friendship, my relationship with the person ahead of that person, that means I'm willing to disadvantage or hurt or exploit that person for my own gain in the name of this relationship. I will tell you you're a fucking asshole loser, vaxtard, if you need to hear it, because I care more about your health than me enjoying your company. And I've always been a fan of stand-up comedy. Oh, the follow-up to that is I'm a friend of humanity. That's my relationship with the world. I care more about humanity than what it thinks of me. And that really embodying that and implanting it in a psychological foundation of gratitude makes it possible to serve people with your words, your insights, your courageous truth in the most impactful way possible. By the way, impactful isn't a word in the English language, but it should be.
Wait, impactful is not a word?
Impactful is technically not a word. Unless they added it in the last few years.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, we can make it one. You put it in the Urban Dictionary and we'll call it official. Right. But it's probably there already. Anyway, I think the most positive impact you can have in advancing humanity is making people laugh while telling them the harshest truths that they are afraid to face otherwise, and helping them smile through the discomfort and transition away from their own bullshit.
George Carlin.
Did he say something like that?
I
Or
mean,
are you saying that was
George Carlin was, I mean,
yes, in
man,
the spirit of his yes, yes, yes.
Now maybe in his last special,
you're saying he embodied the same principle.
Yes, his last two specials, he got a little grouchier, a little angrier, but with humor, he was able to dump it all on the table about they're in one big club and you and I aren't in it. You know, and he found a way to find the humor in the sadness. He was black-pilled, but he was having fun with it. And that's where I started.
Yeah, totally.
Versus, you know, reality versus pipe dreams and hopes. And it's like, oh, well, Trump, oh, yeah, he's part of the deep state. It's like the deep state tried to blow his fucking head off in Butler. I don't think they like him very much. They tried to Epstein him over lawfare multiple times. Like, I know he's in the club, but he's also not in the club. So I have mixed thoughts on it. But you
no, I share your appreciation for George Carlin's genius for being black-pilled enough to really be in his own headspace and come up with an art form to connect that to the masses. So
it's a challenge because you're bitter. There's an anger at like society in general that
you have to take that out. You have to reprogram yourself, you know, through mantra, meditation, repetition, assertion, study, daily habits, self-care, whatever you got to do. You can reprogram everything you want in your own mind. You know, that's, by the way, that's one of the worst things that has been stolen from us by government and institutional education is emotional self-regulation, control of your own inner world. Like that's real freedom. And
can I posit a potential reason why? One of the books that I'm have in the chamber, if you'll say, I'm calling it the Obama Doctrine. And I really think for the past 16 years, it's not like he invented it. It's not like he's this brilliant mastermind. He was the perfect delivery mechanism for it. But it really was that community agitation, community organizer that they used to call it. It's been like this nonstop, relentless barrage of division, hatred, and it's been wrapped up in all this racial components of just... It's been a toxin that's flooded through the United States and the world, for that matter, for the better part of 2 decades. And
I think remember what Obama said?
Emerged from some of it. It's very toxic.
Do you remember what Obama said when he was challenged on why he wasn't prosecuting Bush for war crimes?
Not off the top of my head.
He said, "I can't prosecute him. I'm about to commit a bunch of war crimes myself." No, he said, "We are looking forward, not looking backward." So, in that sense, I would invite you to reconsider the scope of your book project based on the essay I'm about to read you as perhaps illuminating a deeper doctrine or paradigm behind what you might call the Obama Doctrine. So this is fun. We got the time to have this kind of casual conversation, right? This is a rough draft that I'm polishing, refining. So I welcome your input and the rest of the audience. But it's got a very modest title: Complete Instructions for Saving the World. A comprehensive, condensed, and simple but not easy way to keep humanity from destroying itself. An essay by King Adam Kokesh. You don't have to put me on big screen for this. Here's my essay.
The king will get a larger frame of here you go. The king gets a little bit more space.
Don't make me get my crown. I do have a crown, actually.
I'm not surprised. You're drinking from a goblet, good sir. Pinky's out. You're drinking from a goblet.
All right.
There's the thumbnail.
While the world is still a wonderful place full of divine spirits and natural miracles and all sorts of silly hippie stuff and occasional pieces of toast with the face of Jesus, all united by God's love, or gravity for you atheists, it must be acknowledged that since industrialization, or maybe back to when we figured out fire and the wheel, empowered us to multiply our impulses, there has been a cloud of institutional evil poisoning the human experience. Or a turd in the punch bowl, if you don't actually believe in evil, and I don't, by the way. We did not evolve to fight our worst impulses when so magnified, and most people are at a loss for what to do about it. Hence the reassuring lie, you can't fight City Hall. Not only can you, but we must, in order to stop such evil impulses from running amok and even taking over society, as we might call it today. By the way, fight isn't the right term so much as render obsolete or just fuck City Hall works too. Do not be a good man who does nothing because of callousness, wishful thinking, or false fears as they pave the way for evil's triumph. Hopefully that's a pretty obvious Edmund Burke reference rephrasing. The real evil empire is the global paradigm of bureaucracy that values compliance over ethics. To defeat this is simple. Turn it around. Ethics above everything. Do not give in to this false paradigm, the gospel of the governments that would be your God. This is the calling of our generation. To catch up our ethical evolution with our technology. The technology is kind of self-advancing at this point anyway. Clearly, we do not lack for technology when it comes to providing basic needs, including social media and endless online entertainment, easily for everyone on Earth. Clearly, it is ethics. And by the way, this is not a change in any of my understanding of economics or libertarian principles. I think the free market and charity and just abundance will do all the things that liberals, wishfully, delusionally think government can achieve. But yeah, we should be able to provide human needs for everyone on Earth, 100 times over with today's technology. So clearly, it is ethics that are lacking, as nothing more than the goblins of propaganda in our minds prevents us from living in superfluous abundance. In the world we were born for, the world that was the container, catalyst, and cause of human evolution, to stand up to evil was simple and direct, and a coward could be easily identified. Now we cower before this evil, and there is no reason to, except that we are still children, evolution-wise, standing next to the technology and the institutions it makes possible that make us feel small and helpless. Time to grow up. Revolutions are obsolete as they tend to complete a rotation only to leave you where you started. It's time for a conscious evolution, and the evolution will not be televised, but it will be live with no reruns, and it will put you in the driver's seat. Nod to Gil Scott Heron there. The revolution will not be televised. But it will put you in the driver's seat to steer the future of humanity for better. I have pledged myself to this cause of eradicating those irrational fears that keep us paying taxes, obeying unjust laws, just going along, and supporting unethical institutions. So I invite you to join me in raising your own standards for yourself and supporting humanity doing the same. Quote, think globally, act locally. Unless you're running a global charity or something. Perhaps for the past few generations, confusion was a legitimate excuse. Some people still think the politicians are the good guys. In this information age, your only legitimate excuse is cowardice, which has always been irrational, but should finally be laughably obsolete. And it's time to cast it aside. If you're going to commit, as I have, to telling people the important truths, which by definition are the ones they don't want to hear, because like growth, they are uncomfortable, remember to make them laugh, or they'll fucking kill you.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the worst common modern equivalent is to be censored on social media. Or you could just blame Mondays or Mercury and Gatorade or whatever. And the TLDR, you're all cowards, and that's why things are fucked up. Fix yourself, then the world. So I hope you see that that was sort of what I was looking for the whole time when I was, existentially pondering my future as a libertarian activist, as an advocate for, the political philosophy of ethics, voluntarism, just having an impact. And without seeing this, again, like you got to get the sword out from in front of your face to see the entire battlefield. And also, I converted to Judaism. By the way, it is not a religion for me so much as a methodology. So Like I said, I am unorthodox and as anti-Zionist as you could possibly be. And by the way, the main thing that Christianity did to fuck up Judaism, or rather the Council of Nicaea did to use Christianity to make people obedient with bullshit like Romans 13, you shall obey earthly authorities, is that they tried to portray the Bible all the way back to the Old Testament as literal. Hello, for thousands of years, rabbis have been saying, no, this is just allegory. Christianity took it and said, sit down, shut up, you can't read this, listen to your preacher. Judaism says, read it for yourself and think critically. And I think I have a lot of respect for...
And to struggle with God, and to debate.
Yes.
And to...
Yes. This is an important part of my conversion. I'm Jewish by heritage, so a rabbi once told me, you didn't convert, you just embraced your Judaism. But for me, it was a conversion. One of Rabbi Mark Golub on YouTube, may he rest in peace, did a great video series. And in his first one, he says that Judaism embraces the atheist and the agnostic. And the word Israel, in Hebrew, means a person or those who wrestle with God. That is, people who take the question of God seriously, those who engage with God, those who ask deep questions, those who think deep thoughts and are unsatisfied with bullshit answers or letting someone else do their thinking for them. Why are Jews stereotypically materially wealthy? Well, no shit. Being better at reading, thinking, and having a day of rest every week kind of promotes a more effective intellectual lifestyle. Now, I am not an apologist for all the corrupt, evil bullshit that Judaism or the Jewish people have been responsible for. I am a major Holocaust revisionist, however, and really passionately anti-Zionist. But I love
Benjamin reference, perhaps. Maybe you're simpatico on the Owen Benjamin take on that. There's been a lot of rethinking that entire story, and I'll break it. The rail you're not allowed to discuss still to this day. You can talk vaccines, but you can't talk about some of those things.
I'm about to get this whole episode censored. The Holocaust was real, but it was not the deliberate extermination or the deaths of 6 million Jews. It was the deaths of 1.5 to 2 million Jews, gypsies, and other undesirables in brutal work camps and obscene conditions. And it was twisted into the narrative because the victors write the history and because of the exploitation scam that Zionism blossomed into, going back to the Balfour Declaration. And the thing that triggered me having the confidence to do the research, to say, like, I know that as much as I know, we don't live in a simulation and anything else about history, right?
Wait, you know that we don't live in a simulation?
No, I don't. I'm saying, but as much as I know that, I know that this is true. So in this simulation, it's very true that the Holocaust, as it is told by the mainstream, is a big lie. And the work of a man named David Cole, C-O-L-E, David Cole.
And I think you also the phrase big lie very specifically there, because that phrase is used in the opposite.
Oh, yeah. And he, David Cole, Dave Stein, went to Auschwitz and actually examined the gas chambers and proved that they were not gas chambers. Like, physically, the doors fucking opened inward. I mean, it was just stupid shit like that. That, like, when they, like, no, you look at it and you go, well, if it wasn't pre-internet, they would not have gotten away with such a massive lie, but they did. And it's coming to an end.
It certainly feels like something is changing now. I don't know exactly what the tipping point was, what the shift was. I've heard it said that Israel has spent a lot of that. Like if you're playing cards and you got a wild card in your hand, you always have the card from what happened in World War II. You could always play it, but maybe the brutality of what's going on in Palestine, maybe they played their final card. They don't get
Zionism is the most evil thing, like, institutionally on earth right now. And
I don't claim to be an expert. I'm just sitting here like I don't really have I don't know.
So I want to give an insight as a baby Jew with this perspective to help people untangle some of the language that they use to talk about this. And the word Jew is problematic in usage or challenging because it can refer to ethnicity, people, nationality, variety of other things that you would say make someone Jewish or a Jew. And it's important to use those distinctions. But if you were, let's say hypothetically, if you wanted to get away with the most evil shit in the world, you would infiltrate the most pious group of people to do it, to get away with it. And I think that is the basic explanation for how Zionism became what it is today. And I have no problem with people being critical of Jews, of Judaism, of the history of Judea, the Jewish people, the book, the Torah itself. Have at it. Try to be funny, because we're good comedians. It goes with the reading and thinking thing. But please make the distinction between Jews as a whole and the subset that is Zionists. And if you just keep that in mind, you talk all the shit you want and maintain your intellectual integrity. Because it's not that Jews are bad, as in there's no use of the word Jew describes a group of entirely bad or wrong people. But Zionist does. So fuck Zionism, fuck the Zionists. From the bottom of my heart and from the top of my love of God, no homeland until a Messiah, which is an allegory anyway, which means the Jewish people, by my interpretation. And this is where I stand with the true Orthodox Jews who are anti-Zionist. We should be called upon as people who have spiritual, ethical insights or just general principles for living better. We should be a diaspora. We shouldn't be walking around in black suits and silly hats. We should be integrating with the world and be a light unto the world, a light to the nations. We should be inspiring people. And as an unorthodox Jew in my practice, when I say Judaism is a methodology, I practice a sort of integrative Judaism, by which I mean, the bracelet that I wear, this copper cuff, has the Om symbol on it. Om, like you chant in fucking yoga. God is the universal vibration that unites everything. It is God is the vibration of love that is pervasive throughout the universe. My theology didn't actually change when I converted. I was an atheist agnostic most of my life, and then about 7 years ago, decided I was a pantheist, which is the universality, pervasive vision of God. But I was very shallow in my practice, understanding and exercising the implications of that. And Judaism gave me that methodology and the traditions to start that, and I'm really grateful that Judaism exists as a spiritual resource for humanity, because it's really changed my life and helped me complete myself as a man, as part of one of the most underfathered, underparented generations in American history.
Let me ask a follow-up on the Zionism part. To the people that woke up in a world where Israel was a state, where they were a country, whatever you want to call it. Zionism meaning that they want to keep the state they have and their neighbors want them gone, from the river to the sea, erased. What do you make of that person that's just like, I don't know, I didn't create it in 1947. They're there right now. Can you not kill each other? Do they have to move? Must they move? I mean, this is the land that Jesus Christ walked. Like, why does it have to be an Israeli area? Why does it need to be Islamic? Shouldn't it be Christian? Should it be nothing? Should it be an amusement park? And you split the money 3 ways. Like, there's a tension here that we're stuck in. I don't know how to get out of it, but I'd like to see people stop killing each other. That's kind of the extent of where I go on the issue.
Yeah. Well, to quote the great Ernest Hancock of freedomsphoenix.com, freedom is the answer. What's the question? And so when you apply the basic ethics of the freedom philosophy, no human being who has legitimately purchased or homesteaded a piece of land and is living there should ever be forced to move off of that land by another person based on a vision of some collective that they belong to. That's bullshit. Rights means individual rights. You can't violate an individual's rights in the name of the collective, or the collective is no longer an ethical entity. And so when you asked me a question the way you started that, specific, kind of getting into the specifics, I stay out of the weeds. I don't really give a fuck, because I see Zionism, or the state of Israel, as merely, and yes, still the most evil thing in the world, but merely the worst example of statism, because like the United States, for example. How does the federal government claim to own, so much federal land? Did they buy that? Did they homestead that? There was a Louisiana Purchase, but how did France own it before that? They just fucking planted a flag and put up a fence and drew a line on a map and said, fuck you, it's ours. You cross that imaginary line, we're going to shoot you. What the fuck? Now, as a homesteader, and if you want to talk about roads, this also solved the roads problem.
Because you have a fence around your property too. You have your fence.
So you own yourself as a divine child of God or an individual consciousness. As an atheist, doesn't matter. You, as an independent human being, you own yourself, you own your mind, your body, and therefore you own your time, your labor, your past, your future, all of these things. And so how does a natural resource become privately owned? Like if it's a tree in the woods, nobody owns it, nobody's claimed it, or that land, nobody's using it. If I go chop it down and make it into a canoe, why do I own the canoe? Because I've mixed my labor with it. Right? It is now a product of me, of my will and my body and my effort, right? So that applies to land the exact same, not the exact same way, but with the exact same principles. So for example, I bought 10 acres. I could have bought more, but I thought that 10 was an appropriate size that by this principle could not be argued with. Because if you went and bought 1 million acres in the middle of Montana and just put up a big fence around 1 million acres and put machine guns all around and said, fuck you, stay off my land, you shoot anybody who crosses that fence. Is that an ethical homestead claim of mixing? Like, you didn't mix your labor with 1 million acres by putting a fence around it. Fuck you. Now, I grant that collective corporations, companies, groups, etc., may own larger pieces of property for industrial purposes, but even then, they don't get to just own land and not use it and say, fuck you, we own it. If you want to use that natural resource, you got to pay me to take my name off it. Fuck that. But homesteading, I know that I put up a fence around my entire 10 acres and I have walked every single inch of this property, and I'm not literally using every single square inch, but I am using the 10 acres as a whole. And I think a 10-acre plot in this environment, in this climate, the way that I want to live, is an appropriate natural rights claim to a piece of the surface of God's gift to this great green earth. And so I have literally, in that natural law sense, I did purchase the land and use that system. I'm not like squatting in anybody's eyes, but I have come to own this land doubly, in that I own it in the eyes of the government and I own it in the eyes of God and my ethics.
Yeah, there's been with the California wildfires, they've been talking about those the resnicks. They have the halo tangerines, pomegranate juice, wonderful pistachios, and Fiji water. And they have 57% of the rights to 500 billion gallons of water. I was just looking that one up real quick. But yeah, I mean,
no, you don't. You're an asshole who claimed a huge natural resource and as an excuse to use violence to stop other human beings from taking their share of it, to live in peace and abundance, which we should all be enjoying in superfluous excess, given the technology that we have today. It's a fucking ethical crime. Again, back to the essay, like, and this sounds like bleeding heart lefty shit, and it is coming from that place of compassion and friendship for humanity, but it is absolute bullshit that we are not able to live in a world of superfluous material abundance to meet human needs. And one of the greatest obstacles is this paradigm of bureaucracy, this idea of compliance over ethics that says, well, you wrote a piece of paper that says you own that 1 million acres, so I got to pay for my piece of it and make myself your slave. And, it's not easy, but it is that simple.
Well, the earthships collect their water and have back-buried cisterns generally, and there's a lot of places across the country that try to claim you don't have the right to catch the water that lands on the roof of your house.
Oh my God! Yeah, no, there's like a couple city governments that have tried to pull that shit, and it's like, it's
madness.
Why do we put up with this? Why do we put up with it? I'll tell you why. And again, back to the essay, like, we evolved. The human brain and body are designed for a pre-technology world. So evil in front of you, like a tiger or an asshole or a drunk guy, or a would-be tyrant in your tribe, You know,
or a drunk tiger, maybe a drunk tiger, if you will,
or drunk elephant. That happens. Drunk elephant on a rampage. It's easy to identify that evil. It is hard psychologically for us to live in denial of that kind of physically manifest evil in your face. But technology, just by allowing, I mean, even the technology that is the postal system, for example, that allowed, you know, global communication by paper, right, has allowed the growth of these institutions that are fundamentally based on unethical property rights claims. You know, like we own everything in this big fence or within this line on a map. So, yeah.
Well, let me ask about your feeling on what we saw, because you know it's been a wild ride this past year, no doubt. I want to get your take on where we're at currently politically, but also just what thoughts went through your head when you watched Trump get butlered? Like, what went through your head there, like that whole run up, and then where we find ourselves 5-6 weeks into this new administration, kind of moving away from what Biden Harris were putting up there. So first off, what did you make of that? Because either he's on their team and they're going to put him in, it's a red tie, blue tie, it's the same tie to me, or do you see him as an outsider? Are you mixed on that, or you're convinced Trump's, I don't know, just I'm curious to your thoughts on the multiple assassination attempts, the cover-ups, the Ukrainian connection, anywhere you want to take it. I'm curious about that.
So one of the things that I've achieved in my time out of the spotlight is that I have really come to, well, like I said, complete myself as a man, compensate or not compensate, but build in where there was lack in terms of deficient parenting or false programming, you know, questioned a lot of my premises. So I've really, really deeply accepted myself. I've always had a pretty healthy ego, but there were some gaps. I've had some demons, but now I have really, truly, deeply accepted myself, which comes with a functional inner peace that allowed me to get rid of all of my triggers. And one of the beneficial side effects of this is that I don't have to care about bullshit anymore. Like all those things you just said, I'm like, nah, like, yeah. And I don't want, it's like you're fighting the shadow of the enemy when you allow yourself to be emotionally triggered and care about politicians, or even the superficial political fights and distractions that are so much less important than, one, achieving your own maximal psychological health, crafting your mind to optimally align with your principles and your desires and your life goals, and to be able to say the kind of truths, you know, that I like to, I built a greenhouse so I could call people faggot on the internet, to quote Owen Benjamin. But one of my recent Facebook statuses, I said, this makes what I have to say dangerous to all the dishonest, sorry-ass suckers, sheep, slackers, scumbags, shitheads, statists, sellouts, snakes, snowflakes, snitches, bitches, witches, frauds, phonies, faggots, maggots, megatards, mongoloids, paranoids, patsies, pushovers, pussies, predators, parasites, and politicians. It might make them grow up a little. So I'd rather play that role.
That was a nice one. Snitches, witches, bitches. That was a
obviously inspired by George's 7 words.
Very nice. No, well, look, I look at a couple of things, and I was curious your thoughts on. It looks like Trump is trying to stop the war with Ukraine and Russia. It looks like he's trying to stop endless. Let me list a couple of things and get your thoughts. Trying to stop some of the foreign aid that's being money laundered, maybe used against us and our general principles as Americans. Floating the idea, actually sincerely, of bringing Ron Paul in to work with Elon and Trump to get rid of the property tax, the income tax, and ending the Federal Reserve. These have been cornerstones of the Libertarian Party since time immemorial, at least since 1913. Are there anything that I mentioned in that list that gives you any, okay, we've been railing about these topics for a while. If we could accomplish one of these, that would be good. If we got two, that would be better. If we got them all, holy shit, like, we might be onto something. Or are you more pessimistic about that? Maybe it's just, here's some pablum. Yeah, I'll toss you some crumbs, argue about that for a while we loot the country. What's your take on that?
How many years have you been doing this, Brian?
14.
14. You've lived through enough election cycles to see
few.
some patterns. Mm-hmm. This libertarian sucker's gambit happens every 4 years. Obama was the peace candidate.
Oh, I mean, if you bought that, I got some swampland too.
Yeah, Bush. But all right. Well, what did Trump say he was going to do in his first term? Lock her up, build the wall, and what was the other one? Whatever. Drain the swamp. Drain the swamp. 0 for 3, motherfucker. 0 for 3.
All right, but do you like Tulsi Gabbard in her role as a veteran? Do you think Bobby Kennedy's inside the system in the swamp, or is he an outsider that could actually do a couple good? I see a totally different team around him with some potential. Pam Bondi aside, Epstein thing aside, because I'm really black-pilled on that right now. But I don't know. I see a little bit more hope than I've seen in any previous administration. I see a little bit more light at the end of the tunnel than I ever have with Obama, with Bush, with Clinton. Like, it's just all trash. I see a little bit of potentially nice nuggets here.
Let's go back to the lizard dropping his tail analogy for a second here.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Bush family being lizards. Okay, but
that too. Yeah, the lizard people theory. We get into that. No, but you're being distracted by the tail that is being cut off to save the system.
I think the Department of Education is ready to be closed by Linda McMahon. Like that.
Okay. No, hold on. I'm not arguing. I'm not even going to. I'll engage with your one point on education as an example here.
Yes.
Okay. And then you can apply it to the Federal Reserve and every single other policy, real or teased or fainted by the Trump administration. The Federal Department of Education from the beginning has been a bureaucratic boondoggle, and it is abundantly clear in hindsight to anyone with half a brain's worth of intellectual integrity looking at the statistics about literacy and competitive education, international statistics, and all the ways that we're measured as American high school students and college graduates, blah blah blah. It's really. Two statistics I shared recently I think are very relevant to this.
Started by 50% in the 70s.
Yeah, well, may he rest in hell. He was the greatest frontman for seeming like a good guy. 50% of adults in the U.S. can't read a book written at an 8th grade level today. 45 million adults are functionally illiterate and read below a 5th grade level. Here's the thing. The two technologies that are accelerating our intelligence, language, and I know it's not thought of as a technology, but language is a technology that as a species we have uniquely mastered, combined with computing and as the accelerant, right? If you don't know how to fucking read or write or talk properly, you're not going to be able to interface with the computers that are making the rest of us functionally hyper intelligent. And most people are going to be like dumb animals. And I'm not surprised the superclass wants to soft kill most people with the vaccines, or who knows what the fuck is coming next.
Well, and you were kind of talking about that as well. So we're talking about religion. Martin Luther giving people the ability to read the Bible versus, hey, here's the dogma. Listen to your priest. He'll tell you what to do. It's like, no. We're going to figure this out ourselves.
Speaking of
do as you're told versus interpret it and figure it out for yourself.
Speaking of the man named after him, MLK Jr. said, the arc of history bends towards justice. And I believe that is always essential to human nature and the course of our progress. And it's not just that it bends towards justice, it's that we get better. By the way, ethics is a product of intelligence. Intelligence is how we transcend our animal selves, because we are both animals and godly consciousnesses, if you will, right? We have a spark, and you can say it's true about a dog or an animal. There is the animal and there is the spirit or the mind. You know, and you can refer to this, you know, I'm not trying to get spiritual. This is all understandable and, you know, scientific terms.
Well, but that can also be the Anunnaki. That the theory is they came down to southern Africa. They found the
sorry, man, I'm throwing out breadcrumbs for you to follow a bunch of rabbit trails. Like, stop. Okay, the point of that was the smarter we get, the more ethical we get. The stronger we get, the kinder and more generous we are. And that is the real story of human progress. That's what I want to fight for. So if I'm not really putting the bulk of my effort into that, in terms of how I interact with or serve humanity as a whole, and I want to talk about the Department of Education and Trump this and that, and what we compare, hypothetical compared to Harris, and I'm cool because I'm red team and you suck because you're, fuck that. Like, you already lost. You're already playing their game. Transcend it. You know, like Buckminster Fuller, you don't build a new world by fighting. You don't defeat evil by fighting it, but building the new, or the new world, whatever. I forget his wording, but you get the point, right? Buckminster Fuller, favorite guy to quote by a lot of Earthship enthusiasts, right? But yeah, you do not defeat the old paradigm by fighting it, but by building the new one. And so I want to address this paradigm that in my essay, what did I describe it with? Describe it as the global paradigm of bureaucracy that puts compliance over ethics. It values, incentivizes, and encourages compliance over ethics. It is inherently criminal. It is an irrational justification for criminals to get away with, both internally and externally, evil. And we don't need to do that. And I'm not saying, like, I look at meat, as a vegan, I look at eating meat as essential to human evolution, the brain explosion, and an important nutritional crutch. I think we are better designed to be vegans. We are healthier. We live longer as vegans. However, if you cannot get a varied diet that has a complete amino acid profile and micronutrients through your access to fresh vegetables and fruits and other plant products, then yeah, go kill an animal, because that animal did the work for you of gathering all that shit from what it ate and condensing it in its flesh. So similarly, it's not that it's bad, it's just that we can do better. We can, I like, in terms of the integrative nature of my spirituality, I repeat for myself the mantra from Buddhism that the objective should be to minimize your contribution to harm for all living things. And, you know, we toast in our Sabbath ceremony, L'chaim, to life. You know, it's like the good and bad, good and evil, you know, may be illusionary constructs, but we can connect that to our reality and be called on earth to righteous purposes by saying, is what I'm doing promoting life? Is it in alignment with the laws of nature and God and the universe? Or is my intellect misapplied somehow in that cause? Because this gift, man, this spark of consciousness, I like the idea in pantheism that if God is everything, then I'm God and you're God. You know, it's like, oh, I'm a God. No, you are a piece of God. You know, and your brain is a consciousness that creates an illusion of separation. It's all one, right? The universe is all one. So when you allow that individualization to make you forget that, when you stop relating to other conscious beings as children of God, you are rejecting that gift of nature that is the human body creates a brain that creates this magnetic electrical field that makes thoughts and a mind. And you're going to take it and spend it on political drama? No offense, Brian. You do good work. But I want to, and by the way, it's one of my Christian friends who gave me this concept that as brothers, the greatest way that we can serve each other is to hold a crown over your head. The reason I can serve you is like, hey man, what's up, King? Here it is. You're not wearing it yet. Step up. It's right there. Step into it. You know, and to show you that you can be a better person, that you can be a better man. You can step into your divine self. You can at least be living what I think of as a God-facing life or a principled life. And one of the things that's sort of a cliche that was embedded in me in college philosophy is the idea, an unexamined life is not worth living. You have the ability, the gift of critical thought to examine and evaluate and apply principles and find better ones. And humanity dances forward.
Humanity dances forward. So you're not getting wrapped up in all the minutia. I do. Every week I do a daily show, so I'm wrapped up in it.
I keep an eye on things.
Finding some wins. I try to find some political wins covering the news.
And the only reason you need that psychologically, the only reason that self-soothing bullshit is of any value to you is because you have not fully integrated the idea that human progress is inherent to our nature. When you understand that we have come so far over 200,000 fucking years, or from the primordial soup even, and you go, wow, who gives a fuck? 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You have a problem, Brian. You have a little false programming that makes you cry a little bit when America, your homeland, takes a step backwards. And so you are psychologically soothed somehow when you see that we take a step forward. I'm at peace because I see the bigger picture, and I am not vulnerable to that kind of emotional manipulation by current events or the media.
But we know that wars can break out, and we could have our nice little homestead and everything can be changed in a minute.
Oh, actually, my plan here is to declare war on the United States and then have an insurgency and surrender so I can qualify for foreign aid. I figure if they leave half the weaponry that they left in Afghanistan on my 10 acres, it's going to be the safest 10 acres on earth.
They left it there. Yeah. Oh, it was accident. What a thing. No, you said something earlier that you don't believe in evil. If I'm misconstruing that,
it's a construct. I do use the word.
I believe in evil, and I think we've been battling it. So maybe there's a difference there as well philosophically. So I think we've been battling demonic energy for a long time.
So I don't reject the use of the word or the concept evil. I would say that I have. Remember, I'm a baby Jew, man. Like, I was atheist, agnostic, pantheist, non-practicing my entire life until 2 years ago. Now I pray 3 times a day with a prayer shawl and have a Sabbath ceremony I have observed consistently every single week since I converted. And I do at least some, sometimes only a few minutes. I do at least some, spiritual or study of Judaism every single day. So I'm a baby in this.
And by the way, I think that would make a good name for a chapter or a book, Baby Jew. Good chapter name, maybe even a book name, depending, but go ahead.
I don't know, I'm a long way from having, I mean, even you can tell, even for me now, obviously I'm comfortable talking on a podcast. I'm comfortable putting words together, but a lot of these subjects are new to me. And it's not like when I was a presidential candidate and I had like a bit in my head and a soundbite I could just fucking rattle off, memorize. So to your point about evil, it's like Jews don't believe in hell. And I don't believe in heaven as a place separate from the universe. I believe in both of those as constructs and states of mind. But that might be simplifying, not perfectly representing what I actually believe and understand. Like I said, I haven't trained myself to communicate in this, and I'm not deeply familiar enough with the topic. So I don't have an issue with you. I use the word evil all the time to just describe something of bad intent. But I would like to fit that into my broader positive view of life and nature and humanity, to say that there are things that serve life and things that don't, and there are things that are destructive of life. But does that create an entity or a thing that you would call evil? I think evil is better as an adjective than a noun, let's say. It's more useful that way, you know.
Evil is an adjective, not a noun. It's not like there's a person.
It's a feature of a thing that you observe, not a thing that you observe. Or it's a characteristic of a thing.
So then, I guess politically now, there's not like stuff you're seeing that you feel positive about, or things you're seeing that you feel negatively about. You're just kind of disconnected from all of it, not really giving a shit about the things you would.
No. It's not that. It's that I have perspective. I have come to not only really build for myself that really solid psychological foundation of gratitude, but I have also connected it to an appreciation for nature, the world, the universe, human history, and how far we have come. So like Donald Trump could end the Fed tomorrow and I'd be like, fuck yeah, okay, next. You know, it's great that, you know, it's just, so like all the other things, like back to the Department of Education as an example. I didn't finish my point on this.
Okay.
With the Department of Education, because you're the host. You're supposed to bring me back when I lose track of shit. No. So the Department of Education is an important example that will make what I'm saying easier to understand. Like the lizard dropping its tail. The Department of Education may have become, at this point in American history, understood by the majority or a critical political mass of the American people to be obsolete and counterproductive. Which means that it will survive and hold on as long as it can. You know, Ronald Reagan said the closest thing we know to eternal life is a government agency. But at some point,
he was great with the one-liners. He was so good.
At some point, the paradigm shifts regarding a specific policy or agency, like the Department of Education. And at that point, it means that for Donald Trump as a politician, whose interests are fucking power and empire, like that was actually kind of a disappointment. You know, like I did expect him to manifest Americans' demand to stop fucking sending money to Ukraine. But we were gonna like, oh, we're gonna take over Panama or the Canal and Greenland and Canada. No, decentralization, not centralization. It's the fucking opposite of what libertarian principles say we should be celebrating as human progress. So when the paradigm around the specific Department of Education shifts enough, it means that in Donald Trump's decision matrix, well, if I keep the Department of Education, it's a little bit of an albatross that gives me a little bit of power and pays off my friends. But if I cut it, I can be a hero of the people, and they won't question me doing all this other evil shit.
So it's a like an offering, if you will. It's kind of testing the wind to see where the public perception will be, and if it will benefit him politically, he'll do it. Okay, fine. But if the zeitgeist of the moment in the time wasn't backing that opinion, he wouldn't be going that route.
Let me put it another way that you will appreciate for Ron Paul's contribution.
Okay.
If Donald Trump eliminates the Department of Education tomorrow, the victory will have been that we changed the paradigm over the last 10 years. Actually ending it is just collecting the prize.
Okay. In basketball, you make a perfect pass. Yeah, the slam dunk, that's great. You know, you got the 2 points, but you really needed to set the play, to set the screen, to open up the guy to get in the right position. Yeah, you got the points, but there were 4 other people on the court that made it happen. Of course. Oh, I mean,
right. And if I may connect this to just general principles of living well, especially for men, if you don't learn to enjoy the grind, if you don't learn to enjoy and be passionate about what really makes you a better person, and are instead fixated on the future and the payoff and the trophies, you're not going to get very many trophies. Learn to love the grind. Learn to love learn to love, and it's not a grind. That's a bad kind of cliche way of saying it. Learn to love humanity. Learn to love human nature. Learn enough human history to see our arc of progress. Learn to see how it bends towards justice over time. And then you have an unshakable psychological foundation of gratitude. So you go, oh, I'm the Fed. Cool. Department of Education. Cool. Oh, yeah, looking back, we did that. Donald Trump just came in and took credit for it as a politician who's managing the machine. I think that perspective is very important to keep in mind, especially for libertarians today.
I get
and maybe even especially in the age of Trump.
That, though. Biden didn't get the slam dunk. He didn't catch the ball or put it in the net. He was trying to screw the play up. I thought he was actively working against the best interests of the United States, honestly.
I'm not. The president. Hold on. The president's not the player in this. The president's like the stadium owner.
Oh, okay. The stadium owner, not the GM, not the coach.
Or the league owner. I don't know. I don't give a fuck. I care less about sports, or at least I care less about professional sports than politics, because that's a worse layer of superficial distraction of collectivist, immature bullshit. I'm a huge fan of sports, but I play sports, so watching them is kind of boring.
Okay. Let me ask you, when we first started going, we were saying how we were on the steps of City Hall. Let me bring it back to something very local. Gavin Newsom, they've been accused of wasting $24 million for homeless helping, and California hasn't really done much of anything to assist the people living on the streets, the people suffering from mental illness and chemical dependency and whatnot. It was an issue that you gave a shit about. It's an issue I gave a shit about.
Hold on. I don't mean to interrupt, but to go back to a sidebar to complete the thought.
Yes.
I keep track of government and politics in the news the way I keep track of a distant enemy and make sure it stays distant. So I am familiar with how fucked up California is.
So knowing that California hasn't really been able to do a lot to help, despite so many calls from so many various corners of the segments of their population saying, we got to do something about this. How do you take your current approach to life, looking at an issue so big? What are your thoughts on that? Because not everybody can, say, purchase 10 acres. Maybe not everybody can.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can.
Not if you're mentally ill.
Don't use that C word around me, mister. Can't.
No, I said can't.
Fuck your can't. Fuck your can't. No, I'm serious. It's bullshit. It's all false limitations.
Someone who's I'll tell you, mental illness or chemical dependency, they're not the same.
Okay, that's different. If you're not, I'm giving I'm imposing a premise of you're a basically functional adult by today's standards, and saying that absolutely you have no fucking excuse. You can withdraw the majority of your material support from the evil empire, as I have. I still pay a little inflation tax here and there, as I hold dollars as little as I have to, and I still pay sales taxes to a certain degree, but I generally make sure I get back what I give, more than I give.
And so the issue in general,
do not give in to evil, but take ever more boldly. No, move ever more boldly against it, Mises.
Move ever more boldly against it.
That's the motto of the Mises Institute, very much not to be confused with the Mises Caucus, but their slogan is, do not give in to evil, but move ever more boldly against it. And I'm going to call you out for being a pussy, along with almost every other libertarian activist, in the sense that you rant against things you say are wrong, and yet the majority of your lifestyle actually supports them. And it is only by fear that you soothe your ego to say, well, I am speaking out, so that makes it okay that I live a economically mainstream compliant lifestyle.
So what's better? How does the issue repair itself? How does the issue improve? How does the sad state of affairs for that segment of our population all across the country, not just California, but South Park had that one episode, all the homeless go to California because the weather's so great. I don't know. Like, we just.
What are you afraid of?
Huh?
What are you afraid of? I'm going to answer your question, but first, what are you afraid of? That if you were to try to live like me, you're afraid that you would become homeless?
Well, in what? What's the premise here again? In what am I afraid of?
What are you afraid of that is keeping you from making the leap of lifestyle that I describe?
The leap of lifestyle where I would. What'd you say? Get rid of your worldly possessions, or what?
No. Conscientiously minimizing or eliminating your contributions to the evil institutions that manage the world, if not run it.
To like check out from their system, to stop giving them my energy.
To to use the dollar as little as possible, to grow your own food, to live off grid, to opt out of taxes as much as you can, to fight and pay less in taxes, where that's a worthwhile fight, as it was for me, to work off the record or under the table so as to not have a tax liability from employment, for example. All of those things. Those, just my kind of examples that are the big ones. But yeah, what's stopping you? What are you actually afraid of?
Yeah, I'm not there yet. I'm not off the grid. I like that lifestyle, obviously, as witnessed by the beginning of our conversation today. I'm a big fan.
I'm going to take you to the darkest, deepest corner of your mind, Brian. What are you actually afraid of that's stopping you from doing that, from living more in alignment with your principles?
I can answer it by saying this. I moved closer toward the things I want by vacating California. I took a step toward
Good start.
I didn't jump into the pool, but now I'm wading. I'm knee deep. I'm in the water. I'm not.
And Brian, I'm not judging. I'm not perfectly familiar with your lifestyle. I don't know how much bullshit you buy at Walmart. I don't know how many sodas you drink a day. I was kind of obviously imposing that you're an average American lifestyle guy talking libertarian trash. But I recognize that you're obviously steps ahead of the average American. But you are correct to say that you have taken more token symbolic steps than actually having left the system.
I think fleeing Los Angeles was huge. It was crushing.
All right. You're stopping. Hey, your resistance to this therapy session is only going to limit your own results. What are you actually afraid of that is stopping you from stepping diving into the deep end?
Well, I think
afraid to get your hands dirty?
No, I'm cool with that. I think
you're afraid of being poor?
Having resources to do it.
You know what? I would rather be broke financially and own all of my time and have the freedom to do what I want than be making $1 million a year on the hamster wheel and stressed out and miserable and a slave to the system. I would rather be broke. Now, sidebar here. You know that I have been accused many times of being brave for my civil disobedience.
By the way, go on YouTube and look up Adam's history of such events. What was it? Dancing in the Capitol? What was that one?
Yeah, you go to my YouTube. I'm not ever posting on that YouTube channel again because they still take down videos occasionally.
What about Rumble? Are you on Rumble now?
Let's not sidebar there. But if you go to my YouTube channel / Adam Kokesh, sort by most viewed, you'll get an idea pretty quick. But people would accuse me of being brave, and I like to deconstruct that for people. A magician reveals his tricks when he cares about his audience and wants them to be magicians too. And what I told people is that I may be very brave. I may be head and shoulders braver than the average person. I think I am, actually. But that is not what you are seeing that leads you to call me brave for my activism or civil disobedience. Because in that, I am not being brave. I am being confident in my calculations of risk and reward. And what I do differently is that I quantify those things with a force of intellect and commitment to intellectual integrity and persistence in research and just thinking things fucking through so that when they say, well, on the risk side, you might go to jail, I don't see that as like an infinite battle. Oh, I can't go to arrested. I can't go. No. Okay, so I can quantify that and be like, okay, so I'm going to spend an overnight or a weekend, and I'm going to see a judge and get let out. Okay, I'm going to make so much more money from back before I was like, all censored and shit on YouTube. I'm going to make more money even. You just make the publicity that I'm going to get for that. But I was so selfless in my analysis that it was like, I will suffer for 2 days because I'm tough and it's easy for me. Even that material, I got pretty fucking easy for me. But it is worth the effort. It is worth the risk. It is worth paying the cost because I know that the benefit on the other side, the risk reward. What's the reward? It's not just, I get more YouTube views. I sell more t-shirts. I get infamous. It's serving the cause of liberty, freedom, human progress. And I'm willing to make the sacrifices in order to know that I am living in gratitude for God's gift of life and consciousness, and I am applying those gifts to serve him or to serve my concept of God, right? And so it's not that I'm brave. It's that I have confidence in my calculations, and I understand how cops work. I understand how they interact with people. I did a lot of spontaneous civil disobedience. I'm, by their definition, I don't know, I'm constantly disobedient. I don't know, whatever. But in terms of like moments or actions, I was capable after some experience of really doing beautiful performance art in spontaneous civil disobedience when opportunities arose. But I had to, before that, most of what even the Jefferson Memorial Dance Party, the Jefferson Monument, the famous, where I got body slammed onto the, by the way, if I didn't know how to fall for a Marine Corps martial arts program, like tuck the chin, slap the ground, like I would have cracked my head open on the marble the way he threw me. And that's what's so cool about that video. Well, holy shit, he was that close to dying. But
because you calculated the chin tuck, otherwise they would have got the whiplash.
Yeah, I know. But no, not quite. But I will say we did a lot of planning and organizing legal support and gaming out like a battle plan going into that action. And it pays off. So what I want to give you, and maybe your audience, hopefully, and using you as the the example, the guinea pig for my
or the pussy, as you said. Either way.
Yeah, hey.
Either way.
Every man needs to be called a pussy when he's acting like one.
And by the way, I will say, Jeremiah answered the question. He goes, "It's the same for everyone. Failure." That's what the comment I put up.
Fear of failure.
Fear of failure. It's the same for everyone. I mean, yeah.
Guess what? You're gonna fail. You're gonna fail. It's part of life. If you don't, I learned this snowboarding as a kid. My mantra was, if I don't fall at least a few times a day, I'm not challenging myself enough. You really want to live a life as a pussy where you never face the chance of failure? That's a surefire plan to be a loser till the day you die. And I think about the poem "If" by Rudyard Kipling. If you can pile up all your winnings and risk them on one game of pitch and toss and lose it all and walk away with your head held high, you'll be a man, my son. More to the poem than that. And if you can't, by the way, this is a masculine thing, but it's also a human thing that transcends gender. But it's more poignantly relevant for men because we have different relationships with our emotions than women. For men, emotions are signals, and we shouldn't suppress them or ignore them. We should listen to them and not let them become our states of mind. You should not be fearless. Only the idiots are fearless. You should have fear that is rational and never live in that fear. Never be in a state of afraid. Acknowledge a ping. An emotion is a very powerful signal of your subconscious and who knows what energetic fields gathering information that the conscious part of your brain isn't quite capable of assimilating. And it sends it to you as an emotion to spur you to action. And so fear is a good motivator. It should be a real thing. But if you don't actually listen to it, so like you say, I have a fear of failure, that might be behind some of your fears, or economic destitution or homelessness or whatever. But yeah, fear of failure, sure. It means that you haven't really examined that. You're such a coward that when your brain pings you with that fear, you go, oh, fear, let me be a little animal and just run away and be scared and let that get in your fucking head. No, you are giving up the gift of human consciousness that says, okay, I can hear that and then process it rationally and go back to being loving and grateful and centered and go through my life deliberately. And if you did that, you'd be able to live with that fear in its proper place. And you would be able to take it as a motivator and not a limitation. And this is what I'm going to say, Brian, and I love you, brother. I think you're an awesome dude overall. But because I love you, I'm going to hold the crown and say, this is how you're being a pussy.
And does that mean that I need to get off the grid? Is that what you're encouraging me to do? Get away from politics? Like, what exactly is it? David's asking, how do you totally get off the grid? But I think you're saying something a little bit more than
it's not that.
just
Yeah,
getting off the grid.
that's the obvious manifestation. That's jumping to the conclusion. You
Yes.
gotta fix yourself first. You know, like the TLDR. You know, you're all cowards, and that's why things are fucked up. Fix yourself, then the world. How dare you, Brian, you arrogant son of a bitch, think that you know better than other Americans in the realm of politics when you are such a fucking hypocrite that you say it's a bad system, but you are too much of a fucking pussy-ass coward to just change your lifestyle a little bit to stop contributing to the system more than you are taking away from it by your activism.
So what am I doing too much of? What do I need to do less of? Like, break it down.
You are being driven by your fears and delusions that you have not examined.
And you're ascribing this based on what was it that I said? What was the?
You also have not completed yourself psychologically as an adult male. Like I said earlier, we are the most underparented generation in human history because of the industrial and technological disconnects that exist between generations today. And specifically in America, especially with the family law crisis, divorces, blah, 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 all that, we are the most underfathered generation of men, which means that we turn 18, we're still children. And I recognize at age 40, when I decided to quit public life, like, fuck, man, I've got these gaps in my psychological makeup, the composition of who I want to be. And the mantra that reinforces that for me is a psychological foundation of gratitude.
See, because I think
prayer. By the way, prayer. There's an important way that prayer has reprogrammed my brain, and there's an important distinction between Jewish prayer and Christian prayer in spirit. And obviously, I'm grossly simplifying, so don't take this as gospel, but a lot of Christian prayer has the tone of asking, you know, oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes Benz? My friends all have Porsches. I must make. It's like
we're gonna get a copyright claim on this. That's great.
My singing is nowhere near good enough for you to get a copyright strike. But the point is that one of the ways I think Christianity, or at least mainstream institutional Christianity, has perverted human spirituality is that it disempowers us in our relationship to God and says that we are sort of helpless people who have to ask, have to beg. Oh, I was a good person, so God's going to be nice to me. That's not how it works. But you can fix yourself with gratitude. And so the Jewish prayer tradition that I embrace is just expressing gratitude. Like, I am just thankful. When I pray in the morning, I thank God for my physical health. I don't say, God, please make me rich. I say, God, thank you for placing me in a world of material abundance in which all I must do to attract wealth is align myself with your principles of grace and abundance. And then right away, I'm already rich. So I have peace of mind and gratitude.
See, because I am in a place where I'm very grateful, having lived in a submarine, 700 square feet, like right in the hood of Los Angeles, with neighbors on each wall, neighbors on my floor, like just crazyville. I am thrilled to be out of that. I am
surrounded by toxins and waves and signals and who knows what other poisons and evil thoughts pervasive in the energy field.
So I'm extremely grateful.
Humans are not supposed to live like that.
No, I don't think so either. I saw today James O'Keefe, or one of those guys, I think it was, State Farm was bashing the people from the Palisades fire, saying, oh, that's an area humans aren't supposed to live. It's their ego that put them there out in nature. I'm going,
it's kind of true it's kind of true that we build a lot of homes in places that they shouldn't because of government zoning and insurance incentives. And there's a tragedy of the commons of government quasi-insurance that says, I can take risky behavior and build a house where it's got a 50-50 chance of being destroyed by a hurricane in 3 years, and government's going to foot the bill, and people are going to feel sorry for me. And that creates a perverse incentive that leads to irresponsible behavior. So there is a point to that. You want to attack the insurance companies, you're not going to get me with that one.
No, I think.
But then you know this having studied earthships, because you know how easy it is to build a fireproof home off grid, or more or less fireproof, that you can be responsible for, that's not subject to the kind of bullshit that you get when you don't think those things through. I mean, most Americans, when they choose a home or to buy an apartment or rent or whatever, they don't do any of this due diligence. They inherently trust that the people who built it or are selling it, or the government zoning people that approved it, like, decided that it was safe and effective. And so they have outsourced responsibility for their own risk assessment. And they just go, well, they said it was cool.
When I was in college, the first home that I looked at, the first batch of homes that I looked at when I considered getting a house out there, one of them was on a floodplain. I liked the property. The house was whatever. We decided not to do it, but it was on a fucking floodplain. Like, oh, that's only 100, that's based on a 100-year flood. I go, well, that could happen then. That's theoretically possible that this river could run over. I'm good.
That's why I say homesteading is not a skills test. It's an IQ test.
It's an IQ test. See, right here, I'm catching my water now in rain barrels. I have garden areas, 3 different areas where I'm actively growing food, trying to add a little greenhouse component. Like, I am getting close with what I have right now. I'm not completely off.
All right, hey, Brian, you're gonna have to visit me here sometime and fill me in on all this. I love helping people create a vision for themselves that gives them the confidence to make those fears irrelevant by having a comprehensive plan that they're confident with. But we're over time, so you have until the end of this spliff before I'm too retarded to talk on camera. So what else is your audio? Any questions? Huh? What?
You said about being too retarded. I didn't stop you this whole interview.
Too retarded. I was sufficient. I was just the right amount of retarded to speak to the common man.
No, I'll tell you what.
Brian, I have come to accept that I must dumb my language down so that the vaccinated can understand me.
No, I'll tell you what. Next time I'm out in Arizona, I'll look you up. I'll reach out. That does sound like fun. No, and I think part of my inertia, part of my, I don't want to call it stagnation, but part of finding where I'm at and like catching my breath. I think where I've been now in Louisville, I've been catching my breath, reevaluating what is the next step. I think part of it has been, I'm not entirely certain where the next step is going to take me. I could go back to my homeland of Ohio, where I have some family, my family being slightly decimated over the past couple of years. But like, I don't know if just going back to what I knew is the next step, or there's another opportunity so I'm not locked into where I am. I'm making it the best thing I can right now, growing food, catching water, doing those things. Like you said, working as little as possible, trying to spend less, and just, you don't want to be a slave to your toys, essentially. It's not spending less, just don't be a slave to excessive spending.
Yeah, of course.
No, and I have a situation. I'm not scared of like that in particular. It's just, if there's another step, I haven't quite identified, would I go to this place?
Okay. I want to, two things. I want to invite you to a very exclusive club, and I want to point out a book that I would recommend. Actually, I'm going to pull 3 books, I think, off my shelf here. Right. Kind of generally for everybody. And this is aside from my collection of the Earthship textbooks. And then I want to invite you to a very exclusive club. But first, Country Property Buyer's Guide by Gary Cooper. Strategic Relocation, North American Guide to Safe Places, Joel Skousen. Yep. And when I remember, before I bought this land 9 years ago, I was on a book tour, and part of the book tour was seeing the country and visiting other people's homesteads and looking at different climates, areas, and communities in which to live while studying alternative construction techniques. And this book, it's like a textbook, Building Green, A Complete Guide to Alternative Building Methods, Earth Plaster, Straw Bale, Cordwood Cob, and Living Roofs by Clark Snell and Tim Callahan, was a really critical one in my self-education. But over the years, when I first got here, I was a little more inclined to bring people in for work trade and to help. And I had a delusionary positive view of, I let my positivity for humanity unfairly color my view of individuals. And I ended up with a whole drum circle of hippies that I had to kick out of here.
And I think Blake might have been a part of that phase. I believe Blake was in that phase right at the beginning. He
was one of the few here who was not part of the drum circle of useless hippies, actually. He was like one of the reliable, trustworthy guys who actually got shit done. Yeah, kudos to Blake. Solid fucking dude. And I want to tell you, Brian, you have, with me, earned more than sufficient credibility to be a part of the exclusive club to whom I extend the invitation to either come out here for an extended period to experience what I have created for myself, because I know that you're going to use it. You're not just coming for vacation. You're going to use it to create a better life for yourself. And if you want, if necessary, to actually use staying at my place as a transition period. So this isn't maybe applicable to you, but say you were still in that apartment in Los Angeles and stuck, and you're like, fuck, I can go work trade for rent at Adams for 6 months, and he will help me get my own place after that and figure out my vision for that. So I extend that invitation for you. Obviously, it's got to be customized and flexible, but we'll talk, man. And I'd be honored to not only help you dispel all of those bullshit fears that have been, programmed by propaganda into you, the goblins of propaganda living in your head, but also to give you a practical vision so that is in alignment with your principles, so you stay God-facing instead of fear-facing.
Yeah, if it came off that I was fearful, I don't know. I'm very grateful, full of gratitude.
You're so fearful, you're afraid to even face your fears. You're so fucking fearful that you're in denial of how afraid you actually are of the important shit. You're afraid of being judged. You're afraid of poverty. You're afraid of destitution. All of these things that you have not yet properly thought through and put in perspective and realize they're just tiny little hobgoblins that can be just fucking brushed away like they're nothing, and be liberated from them. The greatest gift you can give yourself is liberation from caring about bullshit. Mm-hmm. And I want to help you give yourself that gift and be a catalyst for it.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate David and Jeremiah and these people in the comments, 1,000 comments scrolling past. David was just saying, how do you totally get off grid? And so, David, number one, go back to the beginning and watch some of this interview. But, Adam, how do you get over the fear? How do you get your head right so that you can totally get off the grid?
Oh, we don't have another 3 hours, man.
No, we don't. Watch the beginning of the episode.
But
we have the spliff time.
Here's the thing. There's two categories of endeavor that are both very simple, but we confuse as complex when we let them interfere with each other. And one is like the physical manifestation of getting off grid, building a house or buying a house, whatever, finding your physical manifestation of your principles in your lifestyle. And the other one is the internal world. And so about the physical world, it's not a skills test, it's an IQ test. Anybody can fucking do it. Unless you're vaccinated, maybe. But then the physical stuff, like a little bit of research. Not a little bit, it's significant. To have a comprehensive vision for how you want to live, that that you can build with your own two hands, and determination and your will and your lust for life, and your passion for living better, for living a more aligned, righteous, and enjoyable life, living in love and gratitude.
Heck yeah.
It really is that simple. Like one of the things that I've come to do, a big part of my personal growth over this last 2 years, I did a thing called the Spartan Challenge, and it's kind of a cheesy red pill YouTube channel. All credit to the man behind it, Bo Reffick, great dude.
It's kind of like a Navy SEALs thing. You're running.
No. Spartan Challenge is a 6-month period of disciplined self-improvement.
Okay.
That's all it is. So, give up porn, give up junk food, organize your time, your habits, take control of your mind. And I am so blessed to be in a group of 4 dudes. We call ourselves the Vernal Spartans. We are each other's Spartan Challenge battle buddies, and we do a daily text check-in still. I've been doing this for 2 years. We only were supposed to go 6 months. And I think he's comfortable with this part being public. The other 2 members, I don't know, but Chuck Williams, who you might know from the Dash cryptocurrency, was in the Johnny Hurley group from, Johnny Hurley, Samaritan shooter who took out a mass shooter in Colorado and then was killed by a cop.
Yeah.
If you don't know the story of Johnny Hurley, everybody please look it up. But that's how.
Awesome, and then the ending was awful. It was just.
Yeah. So that's how Chuck and I met. Sorry, we knew each other before that. That's how we connected on this. He sent it's a 12-minute video, and I'll remind me after this. I'll text you the link specifically to this. But if you look up Tribe of Men, Bo Reffick, Spartan Challenge, you'll find a 12-minute, 30-second video that explains the concept. And it's really designed for younger dudes, like 20 to 25. And stop chasing women. Can you stop chasing women for 6 months? Because if you stop and improve yourself, you're going to get hotter women as a better man in 6 months. No shit. Have that patience, have that discipline, have that confidence in yourself. But the 4 of us are now going on, as of March 16, coming up 2 years doing this. And one of we're sort of mutual life coaches, right? And I have developed for myself a specific coaching technique of helping men reprogram their minds through a process of self-examination and developing simple lifestyle habits that actually will eliminate that bad programming. Like you have negative recurring thoughts, you have bad habits, you have impulses that you don't control as much as you want. It's very simple in principle, very complex for the individual going through it. But I've helped dudes with a variety of psychological blocks that are keeping them from stepping into their, divine masculine selves. And maybe we can have a conversation like that. The technique that I've developed, or the process, is sort of to address, like it creates we have a conversation that's usually 2 or 3 hours. And then we create for you a series of assignments or commitments for the next month. And a month is enough to eliminate most, maybe one at a time, but it is enough with conscious effort and the right guidance to reprogram your mind and eliminate a lot of the specific conditioning that's implanted in your head just to make you afraid and controllable.
And you might be happier now than you've ever been?
I don't know if happy is the metric, but yes, I definitely am. It's more, I'm more graceful, aligned, and grateful. And as a result of that, happy in general than I've ever been. Absolutely. My baseline is grateful and happy. Yeah.
Well,
very consistently, very solid.
Like disconnecting from the daily bullshit of politics was a key catalyst to you. Actually, finding some freedom by disconnecting from the daily bullshit, it seems.
Freedom, real freedom starts within, and only you can liberate yourself. And a lot of libertarians are really in denial of that. One of the libertarian, finger trap, if you will, is thinking that you will get happiness and freedom by winning external political battles. No, that's not how it works. But then, man, you got me talking so much. I've let this thing go out.
Yes,
we're way over. But okay. Hey, for the audience, anything in the chat or comments or questions? Anything you want me to address?
Yeah. They were saying.
I'm not seeing it. Only small print when you bring it up.
Yeah, I had the. Well, one of them was, how can you totally get off the grid? That's knowing like how to slightly disconnect. Like you're off the grid completely, but you're linked up with Starlink, so you have internet. You have
off the grid. Off the grid is a term that, if you apply it specifically, simply means you are not connected to the grid of water and electricity supply. It's generally used in the vernacular much more inclusively. Oh, you're off grid, like it's a whole lifestyle. Okay, you can use the word both ways, but these are simple mechanical things that you just figure out. Like, I have a solar power system and a turbine and a generator, and I get water delivered from a nearby well, and I'm building rain collection systems. Like, well, off grid. Buy land that's off grid. You know, for me, I was committed to starting with bare land, and with the Marine Corps and combat experience, it was like, sleep in the dirt, piece of cake. I'm not getting shot at, and I get to build awesome shit every day, and I'm my own boss, and I don't own my time. So it's a fucking piece of cake. But the thing is, everybody's capable of that, and especially men. It is somewhat our masculine responsibility to be good members of society, to be providers and protectors, to be able to create that for ourselves and our families.
David was asking, what state is the best to live in cost-wise? Like, maybe to get your land, and how do you identify places that are actually off the grid? Because you don't want to buy a piece of property. Obviously, like you said, the research will keep you from making a bad decision. But what's the best way to determine? I know they call them pockets of freedom at the Earthships.
Yep.
You call it, you pay $500. They'll tell you, here's some great areas. They'll go through the city codes. They have master lists. But, you know, for normal, we got a couple people from Canada up here asking. So they're just wondering, how do you identify a place that's going to be good for off the grid living without too many regulations getting it sniffing around your shit, you know?
Well, the question contains the answer, except that you started with one big flaw. Did you catch it?
State?
What state? Yes, you're good. What state? Within which arbitrary government circle on a map is the most freedom? No, it's a lot more specific than that. And you're asking the right questions and looking at how to evaluate, should I live here or here or here? But one of the first things is just like climate and personal preferences.
Yeah.
You know, if you're in a place, like, I chose this for a lot of reasons, but I like the weather. I like the climate. It's in the mountains, and it's a little on the dry side, but I get enough rain that on 10 acres, I have what I call tree privacy. On most of my land, you can't see the fences, you know, until you get closer to the edges because of the trees blocking the view. And that's awesome. That was something I wanted. Ernest Hancock just bought 20 acres in Maricopa County. That's fucking sand and desert. And I'm like, oh man, I'd be miserable there. Don't want to live in the desert. So it's very personal, and you can look, there's no standard answer, because it's going to be based on how you want to live and which of those criteria is most important to you.
Yeah. David was saying, have you ever had the cops come out to where you are? That was a interesting question. In the beginning, you had some issues, but you're kind of better now. You're in a different scenario at this stage.
The first thing I built here was a magical thing called a fence, a legal 4-strand tensioned barbed wire fence. And it has prevented Yavapai County Sheriff's deputies, U.S. Marshals, Secret Service, and FBI from entering my property. They have come to the fence line or the gate and stopped. And between me and the pavement, I live down 3 miles of dirt road, there's a lot of crazy motherfuckers who have rifles and backhoes and know that you bury a body vertically with a dead animal on top of it. And this is a place where, when I was looking at it, I heard stories that when law enforcement drive through the area, snipers tend to shoot out their tires. I mean, this is my kind of neighbors. People who are actually looking out for each other. So that spirit and that culture of this particular area appealed to me also. Now, quick warning, it's like, you know, we are, some people are motivated to come out here purely by positive reasons and principles. And some are cast outs from mainstream society who are very limited in their options. And so you got to take, it's like like a pirate republic. You know, you got to take the crazies and the bad with the good, but know that inherently what you are doing is righteous. And this is a very righteous community of people who are doing incredible things that idiots would call courageous, but I think are just appropriately confident and principled in living by basic human values that are fostering life, not hypocritically feeding into a system that is destructive of life. And like, I don't care how good of a libertarian activist you are. One, you have no credibility and you're a hypocrite if you're not living by your principles. But also, you might be contributing more to the system's strength than you are taking away from it. If you're working a 9 to 5, even if you have a successful activism hustle on the side. You're still working for the man 8 hours a day and paying taxes, you know, like that's the more than your voice, your material contribution to the system is extremely relevant. And the fact that we have been convinced we don't have to be responsible for those things, it's a bullshit tragedy. You know, like, well, I just did what I was supposed to do. Yeah, well, you were supposed to be a better person.
Yeah, and it's voting with your dollars is what you're saying. Like the more you interact with the machine, the
right.
more the machine is. But if you step away, look, watch it crumble. Atlas shrugs. You just shrug off the bullshit and watch what happens if you don't participate in it.
Yeah, and if anything, I would say the flaw, like while my presidential platform to resign on day one, declare the federal government bankrupt and dissolve it in a peaceful bankruptcy process, leaving us with 50 independent states, is entirely righteous and principled and ethical and consistent, it's probably not how it's going to happen, because it's essentially a top-down solution for decentralization. And I think the bottom up is actually more productive. So if you are still, you know, you're part of a centralized system begging it to decentralize, like, nah. I mean, it would have been cool, but if America had the wherewithal to elect someone on that platform, they would not need to.
If they had the wherewithal to elect that person that would do it right, then they wouldn't need to, because it would have already
because they would already be living the lifestyle together in critical mass to effectively starve the beast. Yeah.
Jeremiah's talking about you can get about 100 acres of land for 80 grand where he's at. They're talking about northern Alberta, different places in Canada. Why did you pick 10 acres? Why was that like the right number for you versus, you know, I could get a half acre here. Or you got to have at least 10, 5 to 20.
No,
like, why was that right for you?
Yeah, this goes back to sort of what I said about natural law and owning natural resources, or having, I mean, dude, I have some amazing trees. I'm a quick sidebar. I'm a legitimate tree hugger. I have junipers here that are 600 years old. I have trees that were cut down on my land from the 50s and 60s when they were clearing for cattle, where you can count 400 rings. So most of the trees on my land are over 200 years old. And it's like, I own you? I own this thing? I am grateful to own it in the eyes relative to other human beings and to be a custodian of this beautiful slice of nature. But part of it was that in a hypothetically overpopulated world, and we're nowhere close. You know, the only reason land is expensive at all, like land should be close to free, because the government has claimed what, 50% of the land mass in the United States? I mean, I forget the numbers. I don't give a fuck about the
whole western area.
Basically, I mean, it's like you go west of the Mississippi, the federal government owns like 80% of the land mass. If they said, okay, we're going to acknowledge that our claim to this land is not legitimate under natural law, and we have to disown it, we are going to now distribute it as equitably as practically possible, and we're going to auction it off, you know, online in 40-acre parcels. That 40 acres would come down to like next to nothing. I mean, peanuts for the price, and land should be free. Honestly, it is really your birthright as a human being on this planet to homestead, to claim a piece of this earth as exclusively yours, at least in your life, for your righteous usage when you are using it. So why 10 acres? Well, if it's 40, I would be buying buffer space, and that's not as righteous. 10 acres is something that, by the principle of you didn't homestead that whole thing, you don't really own it, no one can make that point. So I'm very confident saying, like I said, I own this land both ways, under man's law and God's law, or natural law.
No, I do appreciate this chat, because it's got me really thinking. I've always grown up with woods in my backyard. I've always built forts, made trails. signs, bonfires, growing shit. Like that's what's in my DNA. 15 years in Los
It
Angeles.
is core to human nature, and it is something that is the way the system has dehumanized us.
Mm-hmm.
That we get to reclaim by choice whenever we want.
In LA, I was able to put those urban gardens in with the drip systems, and it was cool. I mean, oranges, lemons, limes, kale that were 7 feet tall. Like we grew awesome shit on pavement.
And that puts you just a huge step ahead of everybody who graduates high school today with zero knowledge of that stuff. Ugh. And it's all like a mystified, who knows how to do. Trust the experts. We need an expert.
No. And I have a little piece now that I'm able to do a lot of things with, but like just thinking, what if there was the dream vision of what the property could be, having a couple of acres of wooded area, I can envision it now. I didn't know that I was thinking about it as much as I have been, but like I said, this being the pivot point of the next step, it wasn't really forefront of my brain right now. Oh, we're seeing the whole library.
Just this one shelf is mostly my homestead book collection, and I pulled out Building Green as like the central comprehensive single book that I would recommend as a starting point for someone who wants to study alternative construction. But I will say I am very grateful for my privileges and my advantages. And one of them is that is truly unique, aside from the time and intellect and, my parents taught me how to read. I went to the Derek Zoolander School of kids who want to read good and do other stuff good too. And I got to go on a book tour where I was already attracting beautiful, passionate, principled people living incredible lives who welcomed me into their homes and organized events for us. And I traveled the country in a 19-foot travel trailer with a girlfriend and a 100-pound dog, Baloo, R.I.P., best dog ever. It was a unique luxury that I enjoyed of being able to travel the country and literally go to every single state. I didn't get to drive to Hawaii or Alaska, but I have been there. And I saw hundreds of homesteads and quasi-homesteads and the whole spectrum of lifestyles that libertarian principles have led people to live all across America. And from that, synthesize my own vision. And that's a luxury, but it's not necessary. It was actually, in a way, it was an indulgent over effort. I didn't need that.
Over effort.
Yeah. I mean, that's looking at the dark side of it, right? I didn't need that much to figure this shit out and move forward. And you don't, and no one else does. But yeah, I did it thoroughly.
Well, David was asking here about what's a good size to buy to be able to survive. You're not completely self-sufficient. Like you said, you get
no, but I could be. I could be. By the way, I'm a big fan of Mike Adams, the health ranger, naturalnews.com. Yeah. And one of the ideas from him that's really important that I share with people in terms of survivalism is that a lot of people get carried away, again, with unexamined outsized fears and feel like they need a bunker with, 100 years of food. Mm-hmm. And what he pointed out is any kind of social collapse is going to lead to no more than 3 months of true upheaval that you have to survive, and then no more than 2 years of rebuilding basic economic systems coming back online that you have to endure. And that quantifies a nebulous fear into a specific goal. I more than a garden. So I'm flirting with this really awesome babe online who wants to, garden in the gardens that I'm building. And that's a great complementary role for a couple on a homestead. But for me,
I thought the Spartan challenge said no flirting. I thought the Spartan challenge was no flirting.
That was just for the first 6 months. But no, I've moved on. I've actually, a big part of this, a lot of the mechanisms of social control are about polluting men's attitudes towards women and family and kids and responsibility. And so being able to take the red pill, I read Rollo Tomasi's book, listened to the audiobook several times, The Rational Male, and the rest of his book series. And I don't want to pretend that I endorse every minutia, but it's on point. It's critical. Every man 15 and older in America who's not married and done with all challenges with women, so to speak. Although marriage may be just the beginning of those. By the way, I was married once, but technically never been married because we got an annulment. And my experience with women is that I was lied to by a woman so bad that I was basically tricked into marrying her. And we're still friends because she admitted to it and got, she signed the annulment.
I haven't seen her online, and God, I can't even think how many years it's been since that.
Yeah, she really dropped off. She's doing okay though. She's got a kid with another dude, and they're healthy and happy, more or less.
Is she in America or down in Central America doing? Who knows?
No,
who knows? Gotcha.
Not
I was just trying to
remember.
It's been so many years, but
and I think you're confusing two different same-sex girlfriends of mine. Okay, gotcha. But again, like if you take 6 months to just study women properly, understand what you want out of womankind, what you want out of life, and figure out how to dispel the fears and irrationality, and then do the research and develop the skills and understanding to interact with women in a righteous, graceful way, then you can invoke the divine feminine in them, and in that sense, there is a thing you could call toxic masculinity, but it's not from strong men. It's from weak, stupid men that do toxic things, or no, toxic. Really, the term toxic masculinity is a bullshit word or term used to divert by people who have really toxic eating habits. Fat bitches nobody wants. Use that term more than anybody else. But about food. Back to food and surviving. So my goal here, one of my goals, yes, is to achieve absolute off-grid self-sustainability, as in this could be an island, no input, output, and I'd be fine with the rain and the sun that, God gives us. But my first goal is just to have a 2-year supply of canned food and MREs.
Just and that's so much more easy. Months just to kind of have a store like Mike Adams, just two months or 3 months plus 2 years, 27 months roughly. Just get that in store. Yeah. What you were saying about relationships, so like you said, real masculinity. If you water the plant and the seed well, it will thrive. It will bloom under your care. But if you're not taking care of what you're trying to grow, it's not going to grow properly. It's not going to be rewarding to you or to them. There's a lot of analogy between relationships.
I spent too much time in college planting seeds and not enough watering. I ruined a few good women. Yeah.
Yeah, but to be fair, it's not like we know what we're doing either. We're trying to figure our way through life. Like a little bit of grace on our side too. Like we
okay. Here's the grace. Here's the grace. Here's the grace for modern men. The development of technology, going back to the fire and the wheel and the internal combustion engine, transformed the value of masculine muscle to physically manipulate the world. And, God made man, Samuel Colt made them equal, and suddenly a 90-pound old lady could take out a 300-pound mugger with a revolver.
Annie Oakley.
And so that technological process, just since industrialization, has followed. And by the way, this is a section in the book I describe as the asymptote of that, exponential acceleration of the human experience. And for 200,000 years of human experience, the change from generation to generation was relatively minuscule. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, in the last couple hundred years, men were raising fathers for a world that they did not understand. And that gap has gotten bigger. And so it has fallen upon us individuals more so than ever to complete our own parenting, to father ourselves, to grow ourselves into complete men for the modern world that our fathers could not have understood.
And that's not a knock on our parents, mine or yours particular or somebody else's. Just the world has changed so radically. We kind of have to reevaluate what we're trying to get out of this experience. Do we want a partner? Do we want a family? Do we want to be self-sufficient? Do we want to be a cog in the machine?
And this is a small side effect. Remember, life is no longer nasty, brutish, and short. It's just a little confusing. I'll take that trade. Technology's good. Technology is empowering. It's a double-edged sword, but it's a curved blade, and the longer edge is the one that bends towards justice and empowers humanity, because empowerment and intelligence and capabilities empower us to be better people, to be more compassionate, to be more generous, to be more righteous, more graceful, and to live more aligned lives. And I think it's an important part of the paradigm shift that first world men are going through. And this is one place where there is a sort of gender parity, and that there is a women's flip side of this, where feminism really fucked with women. I think about when I describe what I was talking about that generation to generation gap in fathering, you go to the world, you can do it by American wars. The World War I generation was not ready to raise men to come home to Rosie the Riveter after World War II. And the men who had the baby boom post World War II had no idea how to raise the Vietnam generation to interact with feminists.
Yeah, the Woodstock generation. You got free love coming out of that's a very different with the pill, free love, Woodstock.
The pill was a major shift in that. Yes, absolutely. But again, the pill is technology that is fundamentally empowering, but it can also serve, as we have seen, to exacerbate the baser or animal or worse impulses of our nature.
David was wondering, would you be happy without the internet, though? Because you're off grid. You do
no. Yeah. Again, back to the point I made originally here, that what we are doing is not primitive. It is futuristic. It is possible because of technology. It is not regressive. It is not an escape from technology. It is not a return to nature, although it is a reconnection with nature in a lot of ways. For example, when I do my Sabbath, a lot of Jews and Christians who take the traditional Sabbath practice seriously will turn off their cell phones for 24 hours. I don't do that. It's not safe living off grid out here. If my neighbor's place catches on fire, I need to be able to get, heads up emergency alerts, things like that. So the technology, it's not that, I mean, would you do it without the internet? Kind of a silly hypothetical that I'd have to really stop and examine. But the question is not important, because my response is I acknowledge that what I do is made possible by technology. Absolutely. And the thing about it not being it used to be a skills test. And a knowledge test. You used to have to keep all that shit in here. Now it's YouTube University, AI, Hey Google, and we have the truth button at our fingertips. And that's why we have outsourced the necessity to learn skills or remember survival facts to our technology. And that opens up a whole other world of possibilities, where someone like me, who's never lived this way, can just jump in both feet to the deep end with full confidence and say, all right, I'm going to drive my RV over there where there's nothing but trees.
Yeah. And that's where you said the fathers might not be prepared to train the kids because they don't know the world as well. Yeah, the current world is having all that information. Like, we don't need to bog ourselves down with incessant memorization, as long as we have a skill. Obviously, you want paperback books in case the grid goes down, in case an EMP thing. There's 100 things that could happen. But trying to learn how to best navigate the current world is.
Do you know this? Yeah, it's something that our fathers could not, by perspective, we're literally incapable of.
And it's maybe the most important tool in the garage. Why would you get rid of the most important tool that you have? You keep the most important, maybe you thin out the rest.
Do you know the song Fuck You Money by Paul Cauthen?
No, I don't, but I'm in.
Fuck you money. I got fuck you money. And I don't, but I do, because I have figured out how to say fuck you with $1 in my pocket. And that's really liberating. And I think there are a lot of assumptions that are these little blocks that might not even be fears, but simply unevaluated principles, where people facing this decision who are tempted to live this kind of better life don't realize that those ideas are false because they have not been intellectually trained to deconstruct them. That's why the myth and the propaganda of statism is so dangerous. It's like a mind virus.
It's playing into the board game that they set up and they wrote the rules for. And it's like,
no, they put an idea in your head and convinced you it was a rock when really it was vapor.
And by the way, David says, I think we've all messed up a few women in our lives, LOL. So like a little bit of grace there. But like I said, we're all making this up. You know, we're not fully developed. We don't know. We're all doing the best we can. I think
for the first time, Brian, you have given me a little bit of unique perspective on some of my own thoughts, because I have described this and developed my thoughts on this generational and parenting. And, you know, I call it the divine growth model of managing your own mind. And, you know, like that coaching technique that I described to you. But I've only seen it in negative terms. And now I think of it as a gift. You know, in prior generations, going back to primitive humanity, you did not have much wiggle room in how much different you could live from your father. Now you have a blank canvas. We get to redefine what it means to be human for the world that we live in today.
On our terms.
Defined by our technology, on our terms. And it is I take it as our calling, our responsibility, if you will, even as a generation, to evolve humanity ethically, spiritually, in a way that, and psychologically, software evolution, if you will, in a way that catches up with the technology that is currently ahead of us.
The beginning of the movie, The Departed. You ever see that one? It's one of the best movies. You should check it out. Martin Scorsese and DiCaprio and all these guys.
I'll put it on my list.
But yes, the very beginning, it's a black screen, and all you hear is the voiceover from Jack Nicholson, and he goes, I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me.
A product of me.
And
I knew where you go with that right away.
You're like,
no. So do you want to be a man who has a hand in leading his own life and defining the future of humanity, or do you want to be a slave to a system that you don't even fucking understand? Do you want to live like an animal, a peon? And to the spiritual point, the gift of human consciousness as the product of an animal body is that we get to transcend our animal nature to live as gods, or to live gracefully in alignment with God. Who would pass that up?
And for all the people complaining, like you said, compare this to most other generations, I'll take a little bit of confusion and a couple of gripes over what hellscapes other generations had to battle through. World War I, fists and elbows in mud, in trenches. No, I'm good. As bad as things are, come on, this might be the best time to be alive. Let's suck it up and make something out of our lives while we have it.
All right. Well, with that, we're at the Joe Rogan 3-hour mark.
It's kind of a hallmark with me. You could ask Blake Wally, his biggest gripe doing shows with me. I like to expand on things. I think when we settle in and finally just start reacting instead of pre-planning, I think some of the best chats come in those times. But give us your final
time. This was time well spent. And before your wrap or final question, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity overall, but also specifically being the dude who you are and allowing me to call you a pussy and knowing that I do so in your best interest.
I've had, when my brother would call me that, when my bandmates would, that's what people who give a shit say to each other. And you're saying, hey, I found a way to level up and do something that I think is fantastic. You ought to try it, whether that's a great meal or a drug or a way of living. Like, you're going to recommend your favorite things to other people, and you're recommending some of your favorite things to me, who's currently wrapped up covering the political rat race every day, doing a 2-3 hour show about the goofiness of the state. And you are Captain Anarchy, Captain Libertarian, however you voluntarious. There's a million phrases that you overlap.
I'm the fucking king of Gardenia, motherfucker.
The king of Gardenia. Tell people, Adam, and thank you for those kind words. And I was really happy to have you on. Good catching up with you. And this all stemmed from your post on Facebook where I happen to scroll past and catch it. So like a little pebble, it's the butterfly effect. A butterfly flapping its wings can cause a tsunami on the other side of the world. Now we got Canada in our comments thinking about off the grid living. Who knows what they're going to go on to do and where this show is going to take it. So anyone else interested in following whatever the next steps are going to be for you, because you have ideas, you're not really going to jump back into the show yet, but maybe sort of, not this moment. But
it's in development, but I feel like I finally have clarity on what I want to say.
And sometimes disconnecting, distance makes the heart grow fonder, and it can clarify your thinking. Like you said, leaving porn. Yeah. You know what? Step away from some habits and routines that people fall into. You will think more clearly, eat better, and you're going to live better. And David goes, blank canvas, the thing you just said, that's an interesting thought, that we are a blank canvas.
One of the things I learned in my studies with the Spartan Challenge was very disturbing, that 85% of Americans by survey report that they do not set any goals for themselves. If you don't have any goals in your life, you're a fucking loser. 85%. Losers, animals, peons, pawns. Whereas I'm saying, fuck you with this goblet that I got at a thrift store for $1, celebrating the 1975 marriage of Dennis and Donna. So,
that is fantastic. That is great. Adam, yeah, I got a whole list here of goals. Every day I write out the things I want to do, have to do, got to cross off the list. Offline, we were talking about thrifting and going through, you're drinking from someone's wedding goblet. Because I've donated a wedding goblet or two in my time going, what am I going to do with this? I wonder who's drinking out of my past wedding goblet. You got me thinking about that.
This goblet is 7 years older than I am, and it cost me $1. And
that's
fuck
awesome.
You. I love it.
That's awesome. David Ban says, thank you for your insight. Thank you for watching. And where do you want people to check out, Adam? Where should they go to follow whatever your next steps are going to be?
Yeah, my online home now is thegardenofreedom.com. And if you want to get a stream of content from me, I do 3, insight joke posts a day, and share a few critical things in terms of, related living well secrets, like, or when news comes out about, the enemy in the distance, encroaching on our freedoms a little bit more, how to sidestep it or avoid it or whatever. So if you want to, but, I don't suggest like, you better listen to me every day. But yeah, so thegardenofreedom.com, you can find my Telegram channel and my Facebook page where I do post daily. And you can get my book for free there, and the audiobook on Audible. And I'm hoping, by the way, the plan for the Gardenia Sovereignty Project is a long-term activist project for me now. We've completed phase 1. The next phase is to inspire others to do the same with their properties in their own way. And then the next phase is to create the United Nations of Freedom, which is like the United Nations, except with ethics. So when you join the United Nations of Freedom, you'd have to sign basically a certain ethical pledge, kind of like the UN Declaration of Human Rights, except not bullshit. And then when we have at least a decentralized collective of people standing on the same principles to back each other up, I want to start issuing citizenship, driver's licenses, and passports. And I can't wait till I get pulled over with a driver's license that I made for myself. Fucking come at me, bro. We're going to dance. We're going to have some fun. So, but the way that I've done this in the process and the wording, you can study it. And I am absolutely confident in saying that I have as much legal authority on my land as the federal government has. And I have a lot more moral authority.
Adam, thank you so much for your time. People watching, follow his work. Get the Agree to Disagree Show podcast on Spotify, iTunes, etc., and follow the new American media in all of the places, because the old American media has failed you. We're going to sign off for now. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, viewers. To be continued.